Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined in the studio today by Shaka Hislop and Stevie Nicol. And if that wasn't enough, joining us from Paris is Frank Leboeuf. And from Madrid, Alex Kirkland is with us. And we'll start with you, Alex, because, of course, the January transfer window is open. Kylian Mbappe is a free agent at the end of this season. Let's start off with the fact that do Real Madrid actually want him, given that he's already turned them down twice?
Well, at least twice. I've lost count of how many times we've been. Surely it's more than two, isn't it? It's 3 or 4. It's been every summer for the last, I think it's the last 3 years. Look, I think Madrid are still, of course, they're still interested. There were 1 or 2 stories before Christmas about were Madrid, backing out of the race for Mbappe. I was never too sure about that, to be honest. I think a player of that caliber, if they're available, Mbappe right now at least, 6 months left in his contract, he is available. Yes, Madrid are interested. Yes, Madrid are lacking a striker. Yes, the Madrid number 9 shirt is literally vacant right now. So yes, they're interested. Whether that interest translates into Mbappe being unveiled at the Bernabeu this summer is a different question, I guess.
Frank, we've seen you over the years quite anti-Real Madrid. Even when they were winning the Champions League, you didn't think they deserved it. And then you've said for a long time now, Kylian Mbappe shouldn't go to Spain. However, a couple of days ago, you backtracked and you've changed your mind, yes?
Yes, I did, and I never said what you just said, but I said that Real Madrid has been very lucky to win the Champions League the last time they won, except the final. But before, against Paris Saint-Germain, against Chelsea, and against Manchester City, they were very lucky. But whatever, they won it, so they deserved it. But
what a backhanded compliment that was.
Mbappe, yeah, whatever. But the thing is I said that Kylian Mbappe decided to get a challenge with Paris Saint-Germain, and it's understandable. He's from Paris and he wants to take that challenge, and you can understand that it's maybe more important for him that they're going to Real Madrid. How involved you're going to put him? How Ancelotti is going to make sure that he's going to be involved defensively to work hard when he loses the ball? That's the main question mark that I have. Now, I don't have the answer. Vinicius Junior plays on the left side. Kylian Mbappe is the best in that same position. So there are questions that I want to answer before he signs. But I think if there is an opportunity and that he feels that it's maybe the right time, because nothing's going to happen with Paris Saint-Germain, I think he has the right to go there.
Alex, obviously this is quite a tight-knit side, Real Madrid. You don't hear too many stories of any problems within the locker room. Could Kylian Mbappe's arrival change that?
I mean, potentially, it's always tricky, isn't it, when such a big star comes into a dressing room, such a highly paid star comes into a dressing room as well, because he would be the highest paid player at Real Madrid by some distance if he came in. I think the top earners right now are people like Kroos and Alaba, Bellingham, Vinicius, a little bit further down the scale. So, yeah, that might ruffle 1 or 2 feathers, but ultimately, no, Real Madrid's players would love to play with Kylian Mbappe. Players want to play with the best players, don't they? They want to have stars in their team and to be around them. And this is, I think, an exciting Real Madrid project right now. You look at this team, it's a young team, it's a growing team. You've got players like Bellingham. You've got Mbappe's France teammates like Tchouaméni and Camavinga. You've got the Brazilians, Vinicius and Rodrigo. I think it's a great team to come and be a part of. And no, a lot of these players, some of them have said it, some have hinted at it over the last few years. They would love to play with Mbappe. They want a player of that quality in their side. And Carlo Ancelotti is probably the ideal coach for a player who, increasingly maybe looks like might be a little bit difficult to handle. We've seen that with Luis Enrique. We've seen it with previous PSG coaches as well. But Ancelotti, I think, having just signed a new contract, Ancelotti as well until 2026, might be the right man to manage that kind of thing. So now, ultimately, from both sides, I think if you can do this, the players would love to see him come and join.
Makes sense. Ancelotti, the right man to kind of help him, guide him.
Yeah, a guy with his experience. As far as the locker room concerned, there's only one criteria, and that's that you pull your weight.
Right.
That's it. That's the bottom line. Anybody, regardless of how much anybody's making, if you pull your weight, then you're fine.
Define pull your weight.
Well, Cristiano Ronaldo would be the perfect example. Cristiano Ronaldo, we all know, and they all knew that 90% of the time, let's play for him, let's get him the ball, he'll produce. But the key is that Ronaldo also played for them. He clearly played for them. Set pieces against, you would see him heading balls away. You would see him chasing people down. you would see him running for his teammate. And when your superstar is running for you as well, I'll tell you what, that whole team runs more for him. And that's what makes everybody successful. That's why Cristiano was so successful, because he gets everybody in to play for him, but he's also playing for them. That's the key.
I think the only thing that players care about is that you fit in, that you're a part of the team. To that point, if somebody comes in like Kylian Mbappe and is making a whole lot more, it can actually work in my favour. If I'm Jude Bellingham, for argument's sake, and Kylian Mbappe comes in and is making twice as much as I am, but then I go next season and I outscore Kylian Mbappe, I'm looking forward to that conversation with Florentino Perez. I'm looking forward to it. So it can prove an encouragement to the rest of the dressing room in terms of, if I play well, this is the kind of money I could be earning.
The sooner this is done, the better for everyone's sanity, isn't it, Alex?
Certainly for mine, and probably for yours as well, and yes, certainly for Real Madrid, because look, this is one of the longest running sagas that anybody can remember, and Madrid want it done this month, ideally in the first half of this month, if it were going to be done. Because remember, what Madrid really want, whether he comes or whether he doesn't, what Madrid are desperate to avoid is being embarrassed again, is being messed around again, because frankly they were messed around. Certainly 2 years ago, and to a certain extent the year before that, and last year as well. It's embarrassing for a club like Real Madrid. You know, Real Madrid, their outlook is, you know, you don't say no to us, you don't turn us down. If we want you, you come, and you certainly don't say that you're going to come and then end up not coming. Like I say, it was embarrassing. It was a little bit humiliating. I don't think that's a stretch to say that. And so they want to make sure whatever happens, if it's coming or not, I think there's some resolution there. There's some clarity there. If it's done, it's signed, the contracts are signed, there's no backing out, because that was the problem last time. They were relying on the player's word, essentially. And in the end, the player went back on his word and changed his mind.
It can't happen again, can it, Alex? They want this done, of course, before the end of the month.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the difference this time with 6 months left, of course, is that there's no wiggle room really for Mbappe. There's no reason for Mbappe to say, let's try and sort of delay it, like to give excuses as to why he wouldn't want to get it done. Like I say, if he's going to come, well, sign a contract. You can sign a pre-contract agreement. The terms are there, the same terms that were agreed back previously when he was on the brink of joining. So like I say, what excuse could he give really? He needs more time or whatever. I don't think Madrid would accept that. I think it's, look, if you want to come, like I say, let's sign the contract. Let's get it there in black and white. And so there's no room for manoeuvre. There's no possibility of more embarrassment, of more hesitation, of more kind of arm twisting from PSG as well.
Meanwhile, of course, Real Madrid in action tomorrow, their first game of the year, Alex. And speaking ahead of that, Carlo Ancelotti was inevitably asked, not about Mbappe, where he just said, shut up, I'm not talking about it. But he was also asked about what was going to happen. At this moment, we aren't considering signing another centre-back. We're lacking important players, but we have another two who we believe in, Nacho and Rudiger, and two others who can play there, Tchouaméni and Carvajal. So right now, we aren't considering a signing. But what? Just sign someone, Alex. What are they doing?
Well, Real Madrid don't like acting like that. They don't like kind of going against the plan. They don't like panicking or hurrying or kind of emergency signings. They only do it when it's absolutely necessary, like when they brought in Kepa in the summer. So they think, look, like I said, we've got Nacho. Nacho's a very good player. We've got Rudiger having probably the best season of his Real Madrid career to date, in brilliant form, Rudiger. And they're going to muddle through if they have to. They've got Tchouaméni who can come in and do a job. Eder Militao should be back from his ACL tear maybe towards the end of March. Now, that's a while away, but enough perhaps to contribute at least until the end of the season. Of course, Alaba's going to be out until next season. But it's difficult in January, like the right sort of player that you might want isn't necessarily available. Like, you don't want to make a kind of an impulse buy that you end up regretting, committing yourself to a player that you don't necessarily want. So I think they'd rather, and this is more the club maybe than Ancelotti, I think Ancelotti would have quite liked to bring a player in. But the club are saying, no, look, let's stick with what we've got, let's stick with plan A, and let's get through it. And let's hope that Rudiger and Nacho stay fit at least until Militao's back.
Right, Steve, let's talk very quickly as well, so that it doesn't look like Alex Kirkland's internet is bad, and it's just that everybody's talking fast today, and I think that'll be fine. The problem is, surely, it's that you are really down to the bare bones. You're fighting for the Champions League as well, and La Liga, so what are you going to do?
Well, if you're Real Madrid, it's really... it doesn't make any sense. So you're going to gamble the Champions League and La Liga because you don't want to go and get some cover? That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. None.
The only way this makes sense for me is that Real Madrid are preparing some kind of a war chest for Kylian Mbappe and feel that bringing in somebody kind of eats away at that anticipating what it'll cost both in transfer fee and in salary. That's the only thing that makes any kind of sense to me. And what we've seen over the years, Carlo Ancelotti, more than anybody else, has been able to manage Real Madrid, the machine that is Real, in terms of singing from the same song sheet, doing what needs to be done, passing on those messages from the boardroom. But at the same time, as incredible a man manager as he is, somehow gets the best of players, not playing in their natural positions, and takes, whether he plugs Carvajal or Tchouaméni in as centre-back, somehow you sit here and just feel he's going to get it right again.
They don't win the Champions League doing that.
Well, no.
They might win La Liga.
Oh, that's
because you're right now it seems like Girona's your toughest opponent, who we all think is going to fall away. So you might win La Liga, but Real Madrid's not about that, are they? They absolutely are about Champions League.
Of course.
So they're going to gamble not competing properly in the Champions League because they want to get a war chest. That makes no sense to me.
Go on, Frank.
I'm sorry, but for the first time of the year, I'm going to disagree with Stevie, and I really think that's a clever decision. You know what you have. He knows the dressing room. He knows how the dressing room works. He knows that Nacho, Rudiger, or maybe Carvajal or Tchouaméni can play. So there are 4 players in the Champions League. Those players can be effective as well and do the job. And he knows that the players are going to come back, and so he's going to have a problem later on if he gets a new player in, because he will be stuck with one player too many, and that's the problem that he will face later. And I think it's why he's preventing himself to face. He knows what he has. He knows that this might be enough. Yeah, of course, he's not sure, 100% sure, but he thinks that it's going to be enough to cope with the Champions League and the La Liga, and doesn't want to jeopardize any spirit, but also competition into the group that will create maybe some issues to him and to Real Madrid overall.
See, here's the thing. The theory is good. What Frank said there, in theory, makes sense. Unfortunately, if Real Madrid are playing against Man City in the knockout rounds, and you look at the team sheet and you look at Erling Haaland up front against Carvajal, I think you're thinking a different thing completely. That's kind of my point.
The challenge for that, though, Stevie, is who do you bring in January? Real Madrid are linked with Varane, Thiago Silva. Are those?
Well, to be fair, only Stevie's linked him to Thiago Silva.
I'm just saying. But are those the players that win? Are those the centre backs that win in the Champions League?
Right.
I'm not sure you get a centre back to turn you into Champions League winners in January.
Again, I understand the argument. I'm not saying that you just go and buy a square head, But if you use your brains and you can get an experienced guy like Thiago Silva, where you can put him in the Champions League, he doesn't have to play in La Liga. You can get away with Tchouaméni or Carvajal, whoever it is. That's my point. Listen, if you can't get anybody who's got the experience or who can fit the bill, then fine.
In the end, it was late, but it was a win nonetheless for Manchester United. 4-3 it finished. So just taking a look at the Premier League table after that game. And a look, a 7th spot for Manchester United right now. A point behind West Ham in 6th, and just a few points ahead of Newcastle behind them in 8th. Julian Laurent was watching that game for us. We welcome him in now. Luis Garcia still with us, but let's go to Jules. Jules, what a crazy ending to that game.
Yeah, crazy. Even with players coming back, Casemiro, of course, Lisandro Martinez, Varane, all of that, United still didn't have the control that they should have had towards the end of the game. Xhaka just said, I heard him saying about why you're leading and you still concede that 3rd goal that they did, which is really beyond belief. They would be very happy with the win, of course, and very happy by the fact that Kobe Mainoo scored, of course, probably the best thing of the season so far, that Marcus Rashford, after all the controversy and all the negativity, also scores another goal for Holland. So there are a lot of positives, but also a lot of negatives, which shows that they don't have much margin this season.
Xhaka.
Yeah, I thought Jules summed it up perfectly there. A lot of positives to take from this game. But at the same time, while you're happy with 3 points, I thought Manchester United had control of this game, particularly in the first half. You're 2 up, you're cruising away to Wolves. You just do not throw that kind of a lead away. Okay, controversial penalty, but you get yourself back in it with the McTominay goal. Just have some control about the game. And this, for me, is the most surprising thing about Manchester United. At no point against any opponent do they seem to ever be in full control and able to manage the tempo of a game, manage what the opponents do. It always seems to be that the opposition can find a way through, can find a way back into this game. And that, for me, is how the second half went. It just became frantic in a game that Wolves were chasing. So they're happy for it to be frantic. Manchester United had no control of it whatsoever, and all of a sudden there's a game to this. But the biggest positives for Manchester United, you started with and you finished. Marcus Rashford, with everything that's been swirling around, all the criticism he's come in for, and in my opinion, rightly so. Erik ten Hag didn't want to throw him under the bus any further, and you saw that in his pre-game press conferences. Marcus Rashford repaid that. He's not been scoring many. He doesn't need anybody to remind him. And all of a sudden, he finds a finish of absolute confidence, which, if you're a Manchester United fan, you can only hope he's able to build on. But then you finish with what certainly has been the highlight of the season so far. Young Kobe Mainoo coming into this Manchester United starting 11, playing alongside the Casemiro in midfield. And you've just seen a player grow in stature and grow in confidence, almost in 2 weeks. Got his first goal for Manchester United, I think it was last week against Newport. And the goal today was just something. It really was special. And for all the hair pulling you do with Manchester United, Kobe Mainoo has come in and absolutely shown almost that vintage feel of what you expect a Manchester United player to be.
How special was it, Ale?
Well, the goal in itself, not only is it the execution of the goal, the creative aspect of the goal in which he puts the ball between the legs of the defender. But then once you do that, and I'll just give you the perception or the perspective of a player, you do that, you kind of like yourself a little bit because you're like, oh, hello. But then you got to go and finish the play. And I think that's what he then shows us a different level of maturity in which, yeah, he puts it between the legs of the defender, but then there is something else to be done. And it's a little dip of the shoulder, now cut to the inside, there is pressure coming, and to then have the presence of mind, I'm going to bend it around the incoming pressure, I'm going to find that far post, in a moment in which he felt like the roof was caving in. It felt like, here we go again, we're blowing yet another match, and he shows individual maturity. To the point that Shaka was making about the game becoming frantic, Manchester United as a team doesn't have maturity. Individually, Kobe Mainoo showed maturity today in a moment of pressure, in a moment in which everything seems to be going against you. The momentum is gone. Maybe now Wolves go on the attack. Maybe they get the winner. How did we let this get away? In a very tight space, with pressure on him, with defenders coming towards him, smooth, gliding past people, then cutting to the inside, finding the far post, game winner. He's at a different level in terms of his maturity than the whole group of Manchester United. And
continuing that conversation as well, Jules, Erik ten Hag was asked before the game, is this your strongest team? And he said, I think so.
Yeah, and I think to be fair to him, whether we like him or not, like the season or United or not, he's been saying for a while now, wait until I get all the key players back from injuries, because I think the idea from the beginning was to, at some point, play Kobe with Casemiro to have this great young player, and United have been saying for a while that they have this little prodigy in midfield with one of the best in his positions for the last 10 years or 15 years, really. So this was always been the idea, like it was the idea to have Lisandro Martinez and Varane playing together as a partnership defensively, and not all the different centre-backs partnership that we've seen this season. So on that level, he's been saying from the beginning, but what tonight showed, of course, it's a good win with potentially your strongest team. If you think that Garnacho on the right is the strongest option that you have there, But as we've been explaining and as we saw, there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of controlling game, in terms of a lot of things, not exposing yourself too much. All of that, they're still not there yet. But at least it's a good thing if everybody stays fit and they can almost field this team from now until the end of the season, and then we will see where they are.
Good, you have a good result and a good performance followed by a result and performance that you just don't recognize. And so it's difficult to say right now, until we see this Manchester United team put together something like a string of performances and results. I'm not sure which way this dressing room is going. I do sympathize with Erik ten Hag, because I think so many of these players, and I think it's been highlighted this week, and again around the discussions around Marcus Rashford, so many of those players just haven't been just delivering on just what our basic expectations from professional footballers. And that has to be frustrating when you have a dressing room like the one he now has, where players are very highly paid, and it almost gets more difficult to have any kind of control or discipline within that dressing room. And then you see the performances that come more times than not on weekends. We take given the week that they had, again, the result against Newport, potential bananas can make easy work of that. And then building on that, this performance, this result, you take it as a step in the right direction. I'm not prepared to say that they've turned any kind of corner, not just yet.
Erik ten Hag also did say...
He didn't show a whole lot of commitment there,
I'm not sure where we are with Manchester.
Okay. All right, I noticed.
And I want to revisit the Marcus Rashford situation, because we saw what the conclusion to this situation has been. Erik ten Hag said before the game, I didn't select him Sunday. He took responsibility. Case closed. He put him back in. Was it right to put him back in tonight from the start?
He scored a goal, right, Kay? And this is about results. And you put him out there and you hope that he responds for you. You hope that if there's an opportunity that he's going to take it. You hope that he's active, that he's going to create chances, that he's going to run at defenders. And for the most part, he did that tonight. And so, was it right? I suppose in looking at the result, of course it was. And the truth of the matter is that when you line up Manchester United and you think about what their options are in the attack, Marcus Rashford is among their best options in the attack. And so if he's right and all the situation seems to be okay and case closed and we've turned the page and all those things, then yes, he should be on the field. The problem with Marcus Rashford has been that he has been given opportunities time and time again because, again, you look around and you say, well, who are the best players here? Who are our best options in the attack? Marcus Rashford is one of them, and he hasn't been producing. And then if you add that to the fact that he is having a nightlife, if you will, that goes outside the boundaries of what you should be as a professional, then all the more attention goes to the fact that you haven't been scoring. Let me just tell you, if Marcus Rashford had scored 20 goals so far this season in the Premier League, and he was out late, and somebody took a picture of him, and then he called in sick, this would not have been nearly as big a deal for Manchester United as it became. This is about productivity on the field, and then you add fuel to the fire by not behaving professionally. Now he gets an opportunity to make good on it, to at the very least improve his situation, to turn the corner, if you will, to use Shaka's term. This seems like a moment in which perhaps, much like Ten Hag, perhaps he's kind of turning the corner because it was a big moment for him, all attention on him. He scores a big goal. We move on.
I like how Ten Hag as analyst. He's kept it in-house. We don't know what discussions he had, and he says that Marcus Rashford has accepted responsibility. We're not quite sure what that looks like, which is totally fine. That's an in-house conversation to have. Erik ten Hag had every reason to throw Marcus Rashford under the bus here. Listen, I'll only speak for myself. Certainly as a player, there are times that you aren't really in a condition to train.
Okay, what? I'm sorry, spell that out for us, Shaq.
No, just take that as loosely as you like. But the one unwritten rule, as a professional, is you show up.
Yep.
You show up for your teammates. Whatever that looks like, you show up. So Marcus Rashford not showing up, in my experience, goes against the grain totally. Erik ten Hag could have thrown him under the bus, didn't, in his words, kept it in house, and now has been rewarded for it.
He didn't keep Marcus Rashford in house, though, did he?
No. Well, people are trying to do that.
That might have solved all the problems.
So here's what it means for the top half of the Premier League table. Then a 4-point lead for Liverpool over Manchester City ahead of tomorrow's Manchester derby. Luis, Frank Leboeuf, and Julian Laurent are all with us now. Good to have you boys. Liverpool, Robbo, this morning, what'd you make of them?
They didn't play at their very best. Forest had a couple of chances, 1v1. The goalkeeper made another couple of good saves. They were still the better team by quite some way. But I saw Forest play against Manchester United. It was a very similar game where Manchester United had a lot of the ball. Liverpool had a lot of the ball today without creating those really clear-cut chances. But McAllister, I thought, was excellent again today, and it was him that provided the cross for the goal. Good ball into the box. Of course, the referee could have blown the whistle as it went out to McAllister.
Well, if he'd been Spanish, he probably would have done.
But it's a good header. Nunez changed the game when he came on. I thought he looked more powerful. He ran in behind. He went down the sides of defenders. They need him at centre forward more often than not.
When you're able to bring on a Nunez and a Szoboszlai, it completely changes the game. We shouldn't be really surprised.
Right.
Because they create different problems for any defence, never mind Nottingham Forest. And as Robbo said, as good as Liverpool were with the ball, and they passed it around, you know there's a reason why the strikers get paid a lot more than everybody else, because of what they do in the final third. And that's why we win the game.
70% possession in this game for Liverpool, just 2 shots on target. Luis, what'd you make of their performance?
Yeah, exactly. The guys are totally right. 22 attempts, only 2 shots on target. In the last third, you could see that difference where is Salah, where is Jota, where is Nunez. These are players who can capitalize on any single chance. And when you have some other players who have to work out or they play in different positions, we see Harvey Elliott is more at midfielder than as a winger. Gakpo today struggled so much. We saw him a couple of times into the middle, rushing things up. I think they didn't have the composure that he's done in other times. And you could see that with the young players, they play once again with Bobby Clark. I think he did a good job. But it still need some players who can give that extra. And what you were talking about, Szoboszlai, he's a player who, when he's on the ball, you know, they can give you an assist, can give you a pass, can strike the ball from long distance. And this make the opponent try to feel the danger and open up a little bit more. It's true. Once again, Liverpool were a little bit lucky. I think Gallagher did a fantastic job when he was needed. But in the end, you could see that Liverpool was going to find a way. Dance arrived once again, the 18 years old, in the second half, creating a few distractions into the last third and a couple of good passes. But it was Darwin who made a fantastic header to get the 3 points. I think well deserved for Liverpool because in the end, they had the desire from the first minute to try to create something.
Luis, what did you celebrate more, Liverpool's goal or the fact that Real Madrid had one chalked off late? Be honest.
I'm going to be honest and I'm going to tell you, with Liverpool, my wife was sleeping, so I couldn't shout much. She was having a nap. But with Atletico Madrid, I was watching it with my son, and we made a couple of jumps. So I will say with Valencia scoring the first goal.
Frank, should we be focused on how Liverpool got the job done today, or the fact that with a bunch of academy guys in the lineup, they were able to win away from home?
No, I think we have to go easy on Liverpool's performance today after so many games playing in such a short timing and with the amount of injured players that they have and the list that they have. It's understandable. At the end of the day, they got the 3 points. I know after the first half, I said, well, it's going to be the same story. They're going to wake up and they're going to be better, but it didn't happen today. They struggled until the end. We're going to talk about the controversy about the injury of Konate and maybe the penalty against Gomez. But at the end of the day, they are lucky. And luck is part of the game. And when you add that lucky, it's a good sign to become a champion. That's some tricks that you need in your pocket. So, yeah, they haven't been good, except the last, I would say, the defense, plus Bradley, the young Bradley. They manage well. But it's true that after it's very young, it's an experience, but they give what they have to give, and good for them. I think I would say deserve to win, even if it's not that convincing.
In some ways, 2 wrongs have made a right, because it should have been Liverpool's ball. So if you're Liverpool, your gripe is why you didn't get the ball in the first place.
Right, should have been a foul.
It should have been a free kick. So I guess depending on where you come from, that's how you look at it.
But the foul is subjective. The refs got it wrong here.
Yeah, because what the
Got it
referee
wrong.
should have done, having not given the free kick, and he then stops the play because Konaté's got a head injury,
And Forrest has the ball.
Forrest have the ball. The referee should be in control of that. It's not up to Liverpool to give the ball back. The referee almost throws it to Nottingham Forest. So the referee didn't take control. You can't blame Liverpool for that. That's up to the referee.
Right. Frank, what do you think?
Yeah, it's really the referee's mistake. I mean, as long as he doesn't give a free kick for Liverpool and Konaté, you have to give the ball back to Nottingham. And again, look at the action. Tell me why they didn't check Gomez foul and gave a penalty to Nottingham Forest. I mean, I don't understand that action. I don't understand football anymore. I mean, that's crazy. We have
Frankie.
Well, yeah. Okay, go on. Yeah.
If you're going to bring up that, then you need to bring up Danilo on Dan's. You know, we sit here every time and talk about consistency, and there's no question Danilo has two arms round Dan, he's pushing him, Dan falls down, but he doesn't give it, and that's fair enough. So if you're not going to give that, then you absolutely cannot give the one on Joe Gomez. You know, as I said, we sit here and we want consistency. He was 100% consistent on those two decisions.
Frank?
Oh yeah, I agree, totally agree. But again, it's part of the referees to do their jobs, and you have people, I don't know, in the VAR booth. I don't know what they do. Really, I don't know what they do, because we all saw that, and we all saw that there were two penalties. And again, if we only go back to that action of Konaté, I think it's not up to Liverpool to give the ball back. It's really the referee to decide whether Nottingham Forest has to get the ball back because they had it when the referee stopped the game, or Liverpool because of a free kick. But because he didn't give the free kick, give the ball back to Nottingham Forest. That's only fair.
Jules, it happened less than 2 minutes before the Liverpool goal. Do Nottingham have a case for complaint here?
Over the Joe Gomez foul, you mean? Or
No, over the fact that the referee gave the ball to Kelleher when it was clearly Forrest's ball and they should have got it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mistake. We all agree on that. It's Portieni, who, by the way, is having a terrible season. He's a terrible referee this season. There's no doubt. Again, on that, we've said it many times on the show. Got that one wrong. But you're right. There's still a long way between the ball, Liverpool getting the ball back when it should have been a Forest ball, because the foul on Konaté was not given, as Stevie just mentioned. There's still enough time for Forest to defend better and not concede that goal. So I understand the frustration, because it's a game like this. So I can understand the frustration, but they could also have defended better on that. It's not directly that the goal happened. So I understand the frustration, but we should never see an owner on the pitch at full time. I'm sorry, Marinakis, this is his stadium, it's his club, I understand that, but you should never come down and look like you are putting pressure on referees, on people who are there as representing the Premier League. This is not a good look. It's not a good look for yourself, for your club, for the league, for anything. You should not come down onto the pitch because you're frustrated that your team lost in the last kick of the game after what was a referee's mistake.
Luis is just laughing about this in Ibiza. Luis, what do you make of it?
No, to be honest, I understand Jules and what he mentioned, but it's kind of Marinakis come from Olympiacos, and I've been playing for Panathinaikos, and I've seen that almost every weekend. So that's not something that I'm surprised. Of course, I was surprised that it happens in the Premier League, but it's something that they usually do right there. That the presidents, when they are angry with the referee, with a player, or with their own team, they go down to the dressing room, they go down to the pitch, and they make whatever they want to do. I would say, because that's the way they think and they have their culture. But just to say something about that, it's true. But imagine if there is a throw-in that touched one of the players and the referee got it a mistake, and 2 minutes after Liverpool makes the goal, they are going to complain about the mistake of the referee not giving the throw-in to their team, to Nottingham Forest. This is a kind of mistake. It's true that there are 4 officials who can make and talk to the referee and say, listen, the ball is to Nottingham Forest because they had the ball. It's a mistake, but I think it goes through for 2-3 minutes until the goal arrives. So, yeah, it's a mistake, but nothing more to say about that.
Does the amount of time, Robbo, does that impact how you look at it?
A little bit, yeah. It's not as if they got the ball and went straight up the other end and scored the goal, and then they would have been, or should have been, really upset. But it wasn't so long ago we were talking about more respect for referees, and they shouldn't have players all around the referee, coaches coming on the field, a chairman now coming down from the stands. I think it's got worse.
Really?
It's certainly got worse. There's been no respect for referees. They make mistakes, and we all have a go at them. But as a football, football clubs, players, officials, you can't do what we're seeing at the moment. It happens in a lot of games now.
Yeah. Stevie, final thought?
I don't think it's got worse. I'd certainly hope that the...
Well, you usually go home as soon as the final whistle goes. I'm still there commentating.
Yeah, I think absolutely 100% the chairman and the owner has to get some sort of fine or ban or whatever it is, because that cannot happen. It's one thing for coaching staff and players to complain, and I understand that you shouldn't be doing it. But for the owner to be coming down, no, they got to clamp down on that right now.
Quickly, Frank, go ahead.
Yes, I think I can say to Stevie that it got worse. I mean, I come from France, and when you go to England and you know that you will have to play in England, or I knew that at my time, you couldn't say anything to the referee. That was part of the culture, part of the education. When the referee says something, even if he makes a mistake, you don't answer to him and you don't complain about anything. That was the picture that we had about the Premier League. It's not that anymore, from far. Maybe because some European, maybe some French people came over and disturbed the etiquette.
Luis, what does this mean for Liverpool as far as the title race, getting a victory in this way?
Oh, it's another boost. It's to keep the momentum. I think it was very important just to keep at the top of the table, show that even in the worst moment of injuries, not having all the players ready to get a consistent win once again, and to keep that, not only because now it's coming the Europa League, they're going to need their best, they're going to need to continue rotating, and they managed to keep on going. I think the momentum is fantastic, the confidence on the players, they believe, because it's not the first time that this Liverpool side scored a goal in the last 10 or in the last 5 minutes. So that shows that in the end, everyone has to be ready for when Liverpool plays against you, for give the 100% from the first minute until the 96, because Liverpool is going to continue drilling until they find the way of the net. So yeah, big 3 points for Liverpool to maintain the momentum.
If you want to take this a certain way, you can say that Liverpool now can go to Man City and get beat and still be sitting top of the Premier League.
That certainly won't be the messaging.
That's the difference,
right?
That's the difference between Liverpool winning today and taking a point.
So it's massive as far as the title race is concerned.
It's absolutely huge. Huge.
Yeah. People like Arteta and the Arsenal fans will all be looking at that. Obviously, Stevie's talking about Man City. I'd look at an Arsenal point of view. Arsenal would be thinking with a couple of minutes to go, rubbing their hands, we've got every chance of catching up with Liverpool now. It's not the case. They've now got to go and put another performance in. They've got to go and win the game just to stay in touch.
Does it bother you at all that Liverpool are kind of just getting it over the line while Arsenal are just ripping people apart? City are capable of putting up 5?
Couldn't care less. It's not about playing now. It's not about style. It's not about patterns of play. It's not about all the lovely passing from the back.
But compared to the teams that you're fighting for that title, it is.
I couldn't care less if, whether it's Kelleher or Alisson in goal, every time he takes a goal kick or gets the ball, if he kicks it 70 yards down the field and Liverpool win 1-0 with a flick on, I couldn't care less. This time of the year is about winning games. That's it.
Luis, what are you laughing at?
No, nothing. It's totally true. I think that right now, with all the injuries and everything that is happening, it's about getting 3 points. Keep on going, keep at the top and putting pressure to the other team, because now they don't have to wait and see. They need to get the result and wait and see. So I think that is a massive and huge moment for Liverpool to win the 3 points today against Nottingham Forest. Not an easy team.
Go on, Frank. I hear you chuckling.
No, I was laughing because it's really true what Stevie just said. I remember at my time, and Shaka can talk about that, when Newcastle had 14 points ahead and Manchester started to win, 1-0 at the end, 1-0. We all talk about the Fergie time, and it's really what it is. You don't care about the way you play, and Manchester United weren't playing well every time they played, but they were getting the 3 points, and it's what matters the most. So it's what I was talking about, the luck that you need, because that's what it is. That's what it is. You know, a last cross, a last header, and the last goal at the last minute. That's perfect. You go home, you're happy, you get the 3 points.
What's Max Eberle saying, the board member for sport at Bayern Munich, newly into the job? Quote, "We should all be a bit ashamed today. This is not the Bayern Munich that I knew. I was surprised at the lack of stability that I found at Bayern. A lot needs to be
He
changed."
should just have said, it's not my fault. That's what he should have said.
Basically, I just got here. I don't know what's going on. Ale, I feel like we say this
We've
every
covered
week,
it.
every half week around Bayern Munich. It's like a new rock bottom, isn't it?
Yes, and heading into their Klassiker last weekend, some of the conversation was, and even some of our colleagues that we have Bundesliga coverage with, they were saying things like, you know, if you look at the numbers, it's not that bad at Bayern Munich. Look at the point totally. It's not that bad compared to what they were doing last season and the season before. It's okay. It's not, look, it's not great, but it's not bad. It's terrible. It's awful. The standard for Bayern Munich should be different, and this is embarrassing. And what you're finding as well is that there was this rhetoric, again, leading into their Klassiker, the narrative about how, given the fact that they'd announced that Thomas Tuchel was not going to be the manager after the end of the season, that had allowed some of the players from Bayern Munich to play with more freedom. With more freedom to express themselves. And because of that, you're seeing a closer version to the best of Bayern Munich. Nonsense. Because I tell you what happens. When you know that's not the boss, that's not the guy, when things get tough, guess what happens? Huh? When things get tough, a team that wasn't all that together to begin with, and now this guy is not going to be the boss, everybody scatters. Everybody scatters. So when you get punched in the face, this team doesn't come together. They scatter. They get fractured, and the fractures get deeper and deeper and deeper. And therefore, you see a team that at times has no reaction, has a whole lot of give up in them, a whole lot of quit in them. And it's what happened today. Heidenheim, without doing a whole lot, they just work harder. They just worked harder than Bayern Munich. And that's what Heidenheim have done over the course of the whole season in Bundesliga. This, you mentioned rock bottom. This was close to that for Bayern Munich. I don't know what rock bottom is, because losing to Saarbrücken wasn't exactly all that great. Being humiliated against Bayer Leverkusen felt like that was rock bottom. Losing in the manner in which they did last week against Dortmund was awful. And the trend continues to go down and down and down and down. And it's not going to get any better anytime soon.
So Bayern Munich not going to win the Bundesliga?
No, 9.
I guess they still have a shot technically in Champions League, where they're facing off against Arsenal in the quarterfinals. Jules, we know you with your Arsenal ways. Are you at all worried about facing this Bayern Munich?
The only thing really is that the second leg is in Munich, and a bit like what Stevie was saying with Old Trafford and United, and when you're home and all of that. The only thing you could say that, okay, let's see what happens at the Emirates on Tuesday night, and then the second leg in Munich. Really, anything could be possible, should be possible from a Bayern Munich point of view. However, these Bayern Munich side really have been bang average all season. And yeah, you can find now and again maybe some decent football, but even that, we haven't had decent football from them for a very long time. Maybe back to towards the start of the season, the 2-2 against Leverkusen in Munich. That was maybe the best game that they've had, even more than the Klassiker, where Dortmund were down to 10 men early, all of that. So they haven't been playing great. They don't press well. I agree with everything Ali said in terms of no team spirit, no unity in that team. Even with Tuchel, there's just nothing. There's clearly a fracture between him and his dressing room anyway. I think they should have sacked him or let him go, really, when they decided that he would not be there next season. He was, in my eyes, stupid to keep him until the end of the season. It doesn't bring you anything, really. Let's be honest here. So it's been an embarrassing season pretty much from start, really. And I just don't see, when you see how well this Arsenal team is playing, and yeah, of course it's possible over 2 legs. Anything is possible. But really, realistically, it would be very hard for them to knock out Arsenal.
Jules, from a Bayern Munich perspective, you look on paper and it's a bunch of good names, especially defensively, and yet they're chopping and changing all the time at the back. What do you think Tuchel's looking for there?
Well, it's really interesting, really, because if you go back to how this squad was built and what happened in the summer, especially January, maybe not so much. It's a difficult month. I mean, they signed Eric Dyer, which really says it all. But anyway, Tuchel wanted a number 6. There were a lot of people who decided at the club who didn't think that they needed a number 6, like a proper 6, like a proper defensive midfielder. They thought, hey, Kimmich and Goretzka can play there. They've played there for most of their career. They're great. Why don't you trust them? Well, he doesn't trust them because defensively, they're just not good enough. And he never got that number 6. Whether that was right or not, it doesn't matter. Now we see, and we've seen all season, that they could have done with somebody really good in that position that would actually protect the back four far more than Goretzka and Kimmich or Pavlovic or anybody else that can play in that position. And what about the right back position? Because once you let Pavard and Stanisic go in the summer and don't replace them, and you're only left really with Mazraoui, what do you expect? So you play Kimmich, you play Laimer in that position. It's not their position. They don't like playing there. And again, your defense is completely unbalanced. And if on the left-hand side, whether it's Guerrero or Alphonso Davies are not at their best, and again, when you play Eric Dyer as centre-back, you can't expect to have a very strong defense. I'm sorry. So for me, the way this squad was built was completely wrong from the first place. And if on top of that, some of your key players don't play at their best, which we've seen for most of the season, then you're in trouble.
And that means the club that in 2008 was in the 3rd tier of Spanish football is headed to the Champions League. And actually, as of right now, they're ahead of Barcelona in 2nd. Barca dropped to 3rd. And Real Madrid,
It's over.
very happily in 1st place. And there you have it. Number 36. Their 36th all-time title for Real Madrid and their 2nd league title in the last 3 seasons. And there we see Plaza de Cibeles in the Spanish capital of Madrid, the traditional gathering spot for Real Madrid fans to celebrate a championship. The players aren't there. Apparently stayed behind for a more reserved celebration at the Santiago Bernabeu, where they watched Barcelona fall 4-2 against Girona. But nevertheless, there are some folks partying there in Madrid. Amazing scenes. Stevie, what would you give to be there?
Stevie?
Would we let Stevie out there?
A lot of other places.
Would we ever get him back?
To be honest, I think I'd rather wait till the end of the season and be there then.
Be when it's a real party.
When the players are there.
When it's a
us
proper
there.
party and a proper crowd.
And maybe they bring a Champions League trophy with them. So, yeah.
What do you think about Ancelotti keeping the boys home?
I think it's the right decision. And if we talk about the rotations today by Real Madrid against Cádiz, it's because they're focusing on Champions League. And that's actually playing a game. Imagine having to stick around for celebrations. Now, I'm sure that they had nice moments inside the locker room once they figured out that they were going to win the league. And it's something that I think in an intimate setting they would have enjoyed a whole lot more because you're sharing with the people that have done this with you. And it's the group. It's the closest group. And if you have a close-knit group, then you really can get into a celebration inside that locker room. But you know, and you know this full well if you're a Real Madrid player, that you were going to win the league regardless, regardless of what happened today. So it now becomes shifting your focus. And your focus, as it was going into the Cádiz game, was Champions League, a 2nd leg against Bayern Munich. And that remains the focus. And until they win that, then I don't think the celebration is going to get out of control.
Good time to welcome in our friend and colleague Luis Garcia to the show. Luis, today felt like kind of a summary of what we've seen all season. Real Madrid, 10 changes, still get the job done. Barcelona have a lead early in the game, have a lead in the 2nd half, and can't get the job done. And as a result, Real Madrid win the title. What'd you make of it?
Yeah, exactly that, Seb. I mean, the way that we've seen Real Madrid during the whole season, consistent, effective, even with rotation, never lost the composure, never lost the aim of on the target that they have about winning a game, and at the end, you can see, I mean, there's not only that they have won the title, is that they are 14 points away from Barcelona and 20 away from Atletico Madrid, 2 of the teams that they should be battling. But Girona is right there because they really deserve. They've done an amazing job, but it wasn't on the list in the beginning of the season. So Real Madrid this season has been impressive. Lot of credit we have to give it to Ancelotti. I think that the way that he managed the team during all the days and the weeks that they had so many problems because of the injuries, players not in top form, they had to change it. We saw getting Ibrahim Diaz at some point. We saw Tchouaméni play as a centre back, Camavinga playing as a left back. Jude Bellingham, that he was a top scorer, had to drop a little bit to the left side to try to give confidence and structure to the team into the middle. So a lot of situations that Ancelotti has been managing during the whole season. Really, really impressive. And again, just to congratulate Real Madrid for this amazing season once again, and just focusing on what is going to be a midweek game on Champions League. And on Barcelona's side, a very vulnerable team, lost lack of confidence every single time that they were in front of a challenge during a game. When the thing was going well, of course, it's easy to be
Luis,
confident.
we're doing Barcelona
and to bring
later. I know you got your pro Barcelona ways, but we'll get to Barcelona's meltdown in just a little bit. As far as the season of the story goes, Casey, is it down to Ancelotti when it comes to Real Madrid?
Well, when you think of the injuries, you think of how they've had to chop and change, and they've still been able to find ways to get the results throughout the year. I mean, it's huge. I mean, that's the reason why big clubs have big squads, so they can cover. But when the key injuries that they had at center back, at goalkeeper, I think Benzema not being replaced at the beginning of the season, that yes, there was some question marks. Now, what also helped Ancelotti and Real Madrid was an incredibly inconsistent Atletico Madrid, particularly away from home, and a Barcelona that couldn't defend in comparison to the way they defended the year before when they won the title. So yes, that helped, but take nothing away from Ancelotti.
Is there some story here that the rest of the league dropped off, and that's why Real Madrid was able to not just win the league, but do so with basically 4 games left to go?
If you're Real Madrid, it's not your responsibility, nor is it your problem, nor your concern if others are having issues. You're having your own concerns and your own issues. So many times we sit here when we analyze teams and we talk about the spine of the team. But the spine of the team for Real Madrid fell apart coming into the season and very early on in the season. And so you're depending on the rotation and shifting players in and out of positions that, quite frankly, they don't want to play. Camavinga doesn't want to play left back, and he was given that responsibility. Tchouaméni doesn't want to play center back, and he was given that responsibility. Antonio Rudiger had a tremendous season, and he was not expected to be a starter. And there is the shifting, and I think this is critical to the success of Real Madrid, not only this year, but in years to come. The shifting from the old guard, the guys that have been established, the legendary players that are Toni Kroos and Luka Modric, to the future of Real Madrid. And we're talking about Valverde, and we're talking about Bellingham, and we're talking about players that continue to play a more important and more prominent role for Real Madrid. If you're a manager, you have to handle all of that and handle that very carefully. Ancelotti has done that perfectly for Real Madrid this season. I said it in the coverage, and I'll say it again. I think this is the best coaching job that Carlo Ancelotti has ever done, because even though the expectations should have dropped off given the magnitude of the injuries they had, they still deliver a league title. They're in a semi-final Champions League, and they have an inside track to get to the final of that competition as well. This has been outstanding from Real Madrid, regardless of what has gone on in the rest of La Liga.
I think you have to mention Lunin as well, because when you have
goalkeeper shout out,
of course. When you
if anyone was going to mention him, we knew it was
yes,
going to be.
but when you have the stature of a Thibaut Courtois go out, and then your backup, you pretty much know you're going to be playing the whole season, and I think he did a very good job, particularly that he didn't have the established defense. He had chopping and changing, as Ali mentioned, in front of him, and everybody was able to rise and win this title.
And think about this. Since you're going to give a shout-out to the goalkeeper, I'll give a shout-out to the attacking players. Vinny Jr. was out for a long period of time during this season because of hamstring injury and recurring injuries. Rodrigo was not scoring goals early on. And somehow they just managed to get to the next result and get to the next result. So while everybody else is collapsing around them, Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, Girona eventually collapsed, even though it was a good story for a good period of time during the season. But Barcelona and Atletico Madrid were collapsing. The difference between those teams and Real Madrid is the personality, the temperament, the consistency, the plan in place and the execution of that plan. There aren't all the side stories. You don't hear side stories from Real Madrid. As a club as big as this one, you don't hear controversies. You don't hear the manager complaining and whining about different things. No, they get to the next match and they win. And then the next match comes around and they win. Was it pretty? Was it ugly? Doesn't matter. 3 points. 3 points, 3 points, 3 points, while everybody else is collapsing around them.
I mean, we talk about Ancelotti, excuse me, being a great man manager. But we shouldn't forget that he's a great team manager because...
What's the difference?
Well, the difference is that individually you look after people the right way. They arm around, they kick up the backside, they're talking to them. But it's very easy for a team to have so many big players out with injuries that it kind of spreads amongst the team that they're not quite sure they're going to be good enough because they've lost players. He dispels all that. So the team goes on the field, and although there might be 3 or 4 guys who are so-called superstars or they're so-called starters, nobody panics. There's a calmness about the way the team goes about, the way they do their business. To the point, they've only lost 1 game all season. You know, you said earlier, is this about other teams dropping off? Well, when you've only lost 1 game with a couple of games to go, you're getting an awful lot of things right, including your back line.
Real Madrid 3-0 winners on the day.
And it has finally happened. It is officially official. Kylian Mbappe
Who saw this
has
coming?
signed with Real Madrid. They've even put out the famous Comunicado Oficial. That's how we know.
Oh,
Here's what
okay,
he's had
all
to say
right.
about it. A dream come true. So happy and proud to join the club of my dreams, Real Madrid. Nobody can understand how excited I am right now. Can't wait to see you, Madridistas. And thanks for your unbelievable support. A la Madrid. Okay, we have Luis Garcia and Alex Kirkland in Madrid with us right now to talk more about this. So, Alex, what do we know? What's the feeling in Madrid? It's obviously been such a buoyant time right now, just days after a Champions League win, and now this.
Well, yeah, the excitement around me might not be palpable, but bear in mind it is 11:30 on a Monday night and everyone's exhausted after those Champions League celebrations yesterday. As you say, it was a very long day of celebrations here on Sunday afternoon and evening. But yeah, it's huge, and it's going to be absolutely huge. This is the biggest signing we've seen, not just at Real Madrid, but in La Liga, I think, for 15 years maybe, since Cristiano Ronaldo arrived in 2009. That's probably the last signing of this magnitude. It's big, and it's only going to get bigger when Mbappe is presented, when he plays his first game. And bear in mind the context, as you say, this is a Real Madrid team that have just won La Liga at a canter. They've just won the Champions League. Now they're signing arguably the best player in the world on a 5-year contract as well. So he's going to be here for a while. It's exciting times for Real Madrid fans.
Alex, when are we going to actually see him in the Real Madrid shirt? And you just mentioned that presentation from Cristiano Ronaldo. Will it be something similar that they're expecting at the Bernabeu?
That's the plan. They're expecting a full stadium, which we saw for Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, the timing of that presentation has been an issue. I think Real Madrid would have liked to get it done maybe this week, to get it done sooner rather than later. It doesn't look like that's going to be possible because, of course, Mbappe is already away with France, with the national team preparing for the Euros, and he wouldn't want to be seen to be kind of taking his eye off the ball with the national team to fly over to Madrid for a presentation and then head back. So while Madrid might have liked to do it this week, or something like Thursday, France are playing a friendly on Wednesday, we don't think it's going to be possible. It's going to be after the Euros. Remember, the European Championships finish. The final is on July the 14th. And as soon as possible after the Euros, that's when Real Madrid would like this presentation to happen. Of course, it will depend how far France go in the Euros as to when Mbappe is available. They're a strong side, one of the favourites. They might well go all the way to the final. But as soon as possible after the Euros end, so that week after the European Championships finish, we think that Mbappe will be presented here. And yes, absolutely, it'll be a full house at the Bernabeu. It'll be absolutely massive.
Julian Laurent is joining us now. He's been wiping away his tears before he came on today. Jules, how are you going to fill your time now without us asking you every single week, when is this going to happen?
It's okay. I'm going to come to Madrid and stay at Alex's house, make myself comfortable there. Just going to get a season ticket at the
You're
Bernabeu.
welcome, Jules.
And just,
always.
Thank you, my friend. Buy all the shirts and become a proper Real Madrid fan. That's what we do.
Wonderful stuff. But Jules, what's the reaction been then to this? It's finally done. It's a little bit hard to believe, right?
It's just because we've spoken about it for so long. I mean, not just this move now, but 2 years ago, even last summer, 3 summers ago, 4 summers ago, since pretty much I've started being on ESPN, and Kylian has been making his breakthrough into professional football and being that good. We've been talking about him. So to finally see it happening, and even, I really believe someone from his camp was saying today, like, even he knows it's obviously happening, but even he was so excited and just, it's finally there, that dream that he's had since he was a kid. Because yeah, PSG, of course, is his hometown, but Real Madrid is different. This is the team that really loved when he was a kid because of Zidane, because of Cristiano, because of the Bernabeu, because of the history of this club and how, because it's the greatest club in the world, really, and the biggest club in the world. So now, finally, it's official. It's there. I think even 2 years ago when he had that U-turn and Real Madrid felt a bit betrayed, and rightly so, I think he knew that it would happen eventually at some point anyway. So now he's there, it's real. He will focus on France. Like Alex said, on the Euros, it's very important for him. He's the captain as well. This is his first competition as a national team captain, so it's very, very important. But the last few days, the last few hours, you could tell how excited he was and how happy he was with all the things with Real Madrid happening.
Luis, the champions of Europe just got even stronger.
What you're saying that we should be worried, the ones that we don't follow that much Real Madrid for next year? Yes, I think everybody should be with big concerns, because the team that normally wins for fun, they just done it in La Liga, they just done it in Champions League, showing their mentality, their strength in the way they play, and they manage the situation of the game. Next year they're gonna be even stronger. It's true. And it's a concern. I'm sure that Real Madrid is looking for someone else in the middle of the park, because Cruz just mentioned he was retiring. So a very important piece is missing in that center of the park. But I'm sure that Ancelotti will find a way of bringing another player and perform in the better way, as we've seen during the whole season. Even with the injuries, even with all the problems, now they look stronger, because if something is going to show Mbappe is a way he can break any kind of defense. He's a player that in the best moments is unstoppable. He can beat any single player on speed, on ability. He's so skillful. So he needs to adapt quickly to what it is and what it means to play for Real Madrid, what it means, that jersey. But I'm sure that he's going to do it quick. Everyone is expecting him to deliver straight away. And for Real Madrid, it's all about good news, and as soon as possible, bring Mbappe to start playing for Real Madrid.
What's Carlo Ancelotti's message to him? Because this is a superstar player walking into a very tight team, and a team that are already champions, double champions this season.
I think the only message that Ancelotti has to make clear to Mbappe is that he's walking into a team. And the success that we've had, yes, we have individuals who can win games for us, but the reason we have won not only the Champions League but our domestic league is because we are a team, we are a unit. We're not about individuals, we're about us together. That's the only thing. Because as far as the game's concerned, the guy's frightening. On his day, I don't care who you are, you can't stop him. So it's nothing to do with football, it's to do with what goes on between his ears. And if he can turn this guy into a huge, big-time team player, then there'll be no stopping Real Madrid.
Because by all accounts, Xhaka, the guys at Real Madrid already, obviously they're not going to say any different, but they do seem to be very excited about welcoming Kylian Mbappe.
And who wouldn't be? Kylian Mbappe is arguably the best player in world football, joining arguably the best team in world football. And who wouldn't welcome that? And the biggest club in world football. And I say that because I felt, and while you understand Kylian's thinking of 2 years ago with the U-turn that Jules just mentioned, wanted to stay in Paris, he's a Paris boy, I just felt that this was the club that Kylian needed. And while France moved heaven and earth, and I say France moved heaven and earth to keep Kylian Mbappe in French football, with good reason, I feel that he needed to move on from that. And now, despite what it may be costing Real Madrid, certainly in terms of wages and in terms of how much more he's making than everybody else, the club remains the most important thing at Real Madrid. Great players, Galacticos come and go, but Real Madrid somehow manages to maintain this mystique, this aura about them, that I think will do Kylian Mbappe the absolute world of good. And all the players are coming out and saying all the right things about his joining for footballing reasons. Because they understand what the club means, they understand what it will mean to a player like Kylian Mbappe, and what a player like Kylian Mbappe means to that team. Right? I think it's perfect, if not a little overdue.
So, Jules, how do they line up? We've put you to task here to give us a starting 11 with Kylian Mbappe in it at Real Madrid.
Yeah, and we will start with the simplest one in a way, which is to keep the same formation, the 4-4-2 with the diamond midfield that they've used for most of this season, with Bellingham at the top of the diamond as a number 10. And the two forwards this season have been Vinicius and Rodrigo. You take out Rodrigo, I know it's sad for him, and you put Kylian in there. The rest stay the same. You've got your three midfielders behind Bellingham, Vinicius and Kylian, in Valverde, Camavinga and Tchouaméni, for example, and then your back four and Courtois in goal. This is probably the easiest way for Carlo to just bring in Mbappe, not changing too much. Okay, it's harsh for Rodrigo because he's had a good season, but that's the way things happen in football. The other one that you could think of is, maybe a more attacking formation, let's say. Let's move to a 4-3-3, for example, where you have a front three of Vinicius, Rodrigo and Mbappe in the middle. Then you drop a little bit deeper for Bellingham, who can play in a free role if you want, starting in the midfield three, on the left, for example, with Camavinga, Tchouaméni, Valverde, Camavinga, Valverde, whatever the options, but three of the four midfielders will start. And then that makes, you can also play Rodrigo with Vinicius and Mbappe, for example, or Brahim on the right, or Arda Güler, whoever you want to play. That gives you maybe a more attacking lineup that you can play maybe against weaker side in La Liga or in the Champions League. But I feel like the 4-4-2 with the diamond midfield feels the easiest way for Carlo Ancelotti to just bring Kylian in without changing too much and everybody was settling.
Which is the scarier lineup, do you think, Luis?
The scary, of course, is the second one when you got all the firepower up front. But I'm not going to be defending there. I mean, I'm sure that the concerns are who's going to be defending. Tchouaméni, Valverde, of course, they are fantastic players, or even Camavinga. They can do the work in the middle of the park, but you need a little bit of balance. And if you're going to use Bellingham plus three strikers, even though the Rodrigo does a little bit of work for Real Madrid, it's just too aggressive. I agree with Jules that in some games you can use that when you know that you're going to be dominant, that the team is going to sit at the back, but definitely it's a really attacking team. And we've seen this season Real Madrid where many of the games has been sitting back with a low block when they play against teams that they can have a good transition. I don't see that happening very often. So I will go for the first one where the balance is a little bit more with a lot of players into the midfield that can give you that extra work. Camavinga, Tchouaméni, Valverde, three young players hungry to be important for Real Madrid. And then you can give the freedom up front. It's true that Rodrigo, it's been a lot of rumors. He mentioned just a few days ago that Manchester City was the best team and maybe start the links and the rumors. So we'll see what happens during the summer. It's a long summer still. So I'm sure that we're going to have more news and Real Madrid is going to be looking for, of course, get even stronger in the midfield.
I don't think we should underestimate how important it is for Madrid and Mbappe that it's Ancelotti that's in charge. Because it's one thing to look at teams on paper. Do they play a three when Mbappe through the middle? Do they play with two? The fact is that both Vinny and Mbappe are still talking about how they prefer to come from a wide position. And so the fact that Ancelotti is still there, I think is huge. I mean, is there anybody else that would be able to persuade Mbappe or Vinny Jr. that they can play more central? I think the only one that's capable of doing it is Ancelotti. So Real Madrid are lucky that Ancelotti's still there.
How well Ancelotti has dealt with Rodrigo throughout the seasons when there have been a few little run-ins there. What happens now with Rodrigo? Are there enough minutes to go around for him to feel satisfied to stay at Real Madrid?
Yeah, Ancelotti is the master at all this, isn't he? As we've said, he's the coach. You want to be in charge of a situation like this. I think Rodrigo is a situation that at some point will come to a head. If not this summer, then next summer. Maybe he'll wait another season, see how it goes with Mbappe there, see how many minutes he gets, and then make a decision. As Luis mentioned there, he made some comments which he claimed were misinterpreted ahead of the Champions League final, talking about, seeming to suggest that maybe his time at Madrid was coming to an end. He's since come out and said that wasn't the case, and he's very happy here. He's always wanted to be here. He's a player who is a hugely talented player, no one doubts that. Hasn't always had the consistency that you need, hasn't scored enough goals really consistently that you need to be a first choice forward for Real Madrid. And of course, he is the player who is most threatened by the arrival of Mbappe. So I think there's a potential issue there further down the line. But I think we're looking at that potentially for next summer rather than this summer. I think Rodrigo will be willing to give it a chance this year, see how many minutes he gets, see if he is in the team more often than not in the big games, if Ancelotti goes for a front three or a front two, and then look at it, like I say, a bit further down the line in a year's time.
Would you do that, Luis? Stay for the season and see how it plays out for you if you were Rodrigo?
No, I wouldn't. I think that Rodrigo already proven that he's a fantastic player. He deserves to be in the 11 starters, and I'm not sure that he's going to be willing to, because he's been through that. He's been through, okay, you are not the consistent player that we needed. We remember at the beginning of the season where he had those arguments with Ancelotti, and then he started becoming more solid. Vinicius Junior got injured, and he was the main man. He started performing, playing a little bit more on the left, and showed that he's that player, the player that Real Madrid needed, assisting, being a threat every single time and scoring goals. So I'm sure that right now he feels that he can be important up front. But in the moment that Ancelotti started the preseason and showing that they're going to play with 2 up front, not with 3, and that he's going to be more starting from the bench, I'm not sure if Rodrigo is going to be willing to stay at Real Madrid, because probably this season is the one he's going to have more options to go somewhere else, to a top team where he can be the leader of the front and to have options to play every single weekend and maybe a challenge for all competitions. So I don't think that Rodrigo is going to be ready to sit on the bench once again.
Would that be a concern, Shaka, team harmony? Disrupting it.
Listen, I understand what Luis is saying, but if I'm looking at this from a Rodrigo perspective through his lens and kind of give him how the season started and all the speculation around his future and how it panned out, it's a hard decision to make now, your league and Champions League winners, to say that I'm going to walk away. And listen, I know Cristiano Ronaldo did exactly that, but Rodrigo's 23 years old. And as much as he enjoyed this season, despite what the speculation is about whether he starts or not, or whether Ancelotti goes with a front 2 or front, whatever it may be, he has still got so much career ahead of him to figure that part out. And as of right now, he's enjoyed the most successful period of his career. I totally understand him saying, you know what, I'm going to wait and see how Ancelotti plays this out. Because nobody knew what to expect 12 months ago when Benzema left and Rodrigo steps up and plays as significant a role as he has. So you understand that, okay, maybe he doesn't get the minutes that he wants. Next summer, he's 24. And then you start to think about or talk about a move. It's not as though the clock is against him.
I think you're coming from a very sensible, experienced, looking from the outside in type of guy. Because I'm 100% with Luis here. Once you've done all the travelling and sitting on the bench and sitting on the bus and not playing, and you go through all that, regardless of how old you are, and then you play 49 games last year, you played 51 this year, I think, yes, you keep your mouth shut until 10 games in, and then you figure out what's going on. And if he's not playing, I'm with Luis. You want to get off. And I can't argue what you're talking about. He's only 23. He's still got a whole career ahead of him. But he ain't thinking that. He's thinking, hold on a minute, I've paid my dues. I've sat on my backside. I've played 51 games. We won the league. We won the Champions League. And yet, I'm the one I'm sat my backside again. Now, I'm with Luis. I think he waits, sees what happens. First 10 games, see where he lands. He'll figure out where he is after 10 games of next season. And if he's on the outs, I think I'm Luis. I think he looks to go in the next window.
When we do go back to Mbappe, though, Jules, this obviously he's used to being in the spotlight. He's used to pressure, but this is going to be a pressure that even he hasn't known, especially if Real Madrid do go through some tough times, because surely the lens will really be on him, saying, oh, well, now they've got Mbappe. Are they better off? Are they worse off? There will be that, won't there?
Yes, but trust me, he's prepared himself for so many years to be in this position now. Again, even outside the fact that this was his dream and that the dream has come true now, he's been prepared himself. He's been learning Spanish before to be able to speak in Spanish the day, and Alex was mentioning, wherever that is, that he will be presented at the Bernabeu, first to the press, and then obviously then to a full stadium, doing those key PRPs that we see the players doing that, and maybe taking the microphone and saying a few words. This is the only reason why he learned Spanish, is for that day, not to, not to read a novel in Spanish or to watch a movie in Spanish or listening to Spanish music. Maybe one day, but it was all for that. So he's been preparing himself all those years for this moment. Right now, he's found a house already, which is Gareth Bale's former house. He will live in La Finca, one of the best area of Madrid, next to a lot of his teammates. So he's there. It won't take him time to adapt, and he's ready for the pressure. And he knows this is the biggest club in the world. He knows the pressure will come from the newspapers, from the media, 24/7. But again, he's been there for such a young age that that doesn't faze him. I mean, not much phases him anyway, but that's not going to faze him. He's going to be far more excited than apprehensive, really, arriving in Madrid after the Euros. And again, he's been waiting for this moment for so long that I just don't think that will be an issue. He knows the expectations are there, and obviously he's the best player in the world. So if he doesn't get to 30, 40, 50 goals, I don't know how many he's going to score. Yeah, he knows that people are going to moan maybe, but that's not going to stop him. I think he will be a success. He's far too smart for that, and the team is far too good for him not to succeed there.
Who's going to be loved more? First game of the season, Alex, Vinicius or Mbappe? Who's the excitement going to be on in that first game of the season?
It's a good question, and it's a nice dilemma to have, and it's a nice choice to have as a fan, isn't it? Am I cheering more for Mbappe or for Vinicius or for Jude Bellingham? And that's the thing. That's the frightening thing. You look at this team. You're talking about Ballon d'Or candidates, talking about it must be in the top 5 most valuable players in the world. Mbappe, Vinicius, Bellingham. You've got 3 of them in this one team. You've got 3 superstars who would be the absolute undisputed main man at any other club, all in the same side. We've seen it here this season. The first half of the season, all the talk was Jude Bellingham, Ballon d'Or. The second half of the season, it was Vinicius Junior, Ballon d'Or, with a bit of Toni Kroos thrown in for good measure as well. Now add Mbappe to the mix. It's quite incredible. Of course, Vinny, I mean, he really is the fan favourite now here. They absolutely love him with what he has become the main man for the club in the last year or so. But there's also sort of the thrill and the excitement of the new, isn't there? The sort of the shiny new thing, and Mbappe is going to be that shiny new thing. So, but why choose? Why not simply go for root for both and be equally excited about both and about Bellingham as well?
Alex, we're going to let you get back to your mansion in La Finca and get Jules' room ready. And we'll let you get some rest.
Thank you.
Jules, what does it mean for PSG now then? Is there a weird way that you can look at it as a positive, where they're not wondering now where he's going and those wages that were spent on Mbappe can be distributed and bring new players in?
Yeah, you're right. It's a way of looking at it. I still think that any team in the world losing the best player in the world will be damaging, of course. I think it's damaging for the status of the club. It will be damaging because you need to replace him now, and you can't go and sign a player that can just come in, take his place, score all the goals that he scored, be the leader that he was, etc., etc. So you'll have to think about it in a different way. And Luis Enrique and Luis Campos are working already on this. You will be able to strengthen your squads, and maybe, and I think that's the hope at the club right now, to make this even more of a team, because there won't be any superstars of Kylian Mbappe's status, really. Next season, it will be players that Luis Enrique will try to mold into this strong unit, a very strong collective, to try to be able to win and go far in the Champions League, for example. And I can see it, of course, you can. If you go and get someone like Kvaratskhelia, for example, you can make this a really good team. But the X factor really was Mbappe for the last 2-3 years, really, since Neymar, even when Messi and Neymar were there. And now you've lost that X factor. So you will need to find an X factor somewhere else. It might be the team, again, as a collective. But I still think it's very hard to replace him. So we will have to see what they do in the summer. It's a very important summer for them. Yes, they saved a lot of money by him going, of course, around the 80 to 100 million euros, which is a lot of money, of course. But you've still lost the best player in the world.
There's obviously huge expectations every single season, Luis, on Real Madrid. They're expected to win everything, but it feels as though that's gone up a level now that Kylian Mbappe is going to be there.
Exactly. It is true that for Real Madrid, it doesn't make a lot of difference, but from now on, they are going to feel the pressure of you need to do it once again. They were mentioning that after winning and lifting the 15, Florentino was already talking about winning the 16, and the pressure was on Ancelotti for next year trying to bring the 16. But it's the way it is. That's how Real Madrid history has been working on. The moment that you don't win a trophy is a failure of a season, and you need to put everything on the stake for the next one to try to win it. After winning La Liga and Champions League next year, there is no the difference, and the pressure is going to be there much more for the player is going to arrive, because they are not only going to expect that you deliver trophies, but also good football. They are always expecting that you score, that you will be the top scorer, that you will be the player who beats players on 1v1 situation every single time. So there is a lot of expectation when Kylian Mbappe arrives, but I'm sure that he's going to cope with everything, because he's been waiting for this moment for such a long time.
Do they defend the double next season?
I think that they're gonna be there. Of course, a team doesn't make a difference with just one player. I think it's about the team. Like, arriving Kylian Mbappe to Real Madrid doesn't mean that the next year they're gonna win everything. Of course, they're gonna be stronger, but I'm gonna say it again. They're gonna miss a very important player in the middle of the park. Cruz makes a big difference on the build-up of the way. If we try to think about some important moments where Cruz is being giving those balls to Vinicius Jr., to Rodrigo, to Joselu, to Bellingham. He's like the engine who helps everyone to play better, and he's not going to be there. And I'm not saying that Tchouaméni, the Valverde, the Camavinga are not going to deliver things, but they are not Toni Kroos. They are not. They don't have the quality and the experience of these players. So I'm sure that they need to work on that. So bringing Mbappe, yes, it's gonna strengthen your front three or your front two, but definitely it's not gonna make you win trophy straight away. You're gonna need to continue doing a lot of things good if you wanna win it.
Jules, another double next season for Real Madrid?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they will be ultra favourite for La Liga, of course, and even for the Champions League. And when you look at this season, when they lost only 2 games all season, one in the Liga against Atletico Madrid, one in the Copa del Rey against Atletico Madrid, and they were without Courtois, without Militao, without Alaba for most of the season, and obviously without Kylian. Yes, Cruz is leaving and Ruiz is right. It's a massive loss, and I'm not sure how, again, they will replace him, who's going to play where, if they go and sign somebody else, if you give a bit more time to Luka Modric next season, even at his age. But this team is just going to get so much better, so much stronger now with the return of all the injuries, plus Kylian, plus whoever comes in might come in midfield for Cruz. You could see them winning everything, of course. You can see them being very difficult to beat, of course. And anything is possible in football, but over the length of a season, that consistency with a squad like that, and we haven't even mentioned Brahim Diaz and Arda Güler and Endrick coming from Brazil as well. You just imagine the depth in the squad that they have in every position. It's quite scary when you think about it already. So I just say good luck to whoever faces them next season in the league, in the cup, in the Club World Cup and in the Champions League, because it's going to be a tough task.
Spain, once again, champions of Europe, defeated England by 2-1 in the final in Berlin. It was a poor first half, lacking real any sort of quality, but then Spain would take the lead early on in the second half, which is quite something considering they lost Rodri at half-time. England then would bring on more of an attacking lineup. Cole Palmer would get the equaliser, but Urasabat in the end, after a great ball in from Cucurella, would score the winner as Spain are champions, once again breaking England's hearts. Right then, there we go. I think we can all agree the best team won.
Yeah, I mean, not just the best team today, the best team all throughout the competition.
Football won. Football won. We have to be even wider than that.
There's a couple of Englishmen here, and one of them is very raw.
I know, I think I'm all right, actually.
Yeah, you are.
I'm not bad. Look, if we were the better team and lost because of a break or a mistake, but in this scenario, I think anyone can watch that game and say, yeah, Spain were the better team, they created the better chances, and therefore they deserve the trophy.
And again, it's one of the things we talked about, if we look at England briefly, was just this dull, negative, not getting the best out of some world-class players going forward, and got away with it in a lot of games, did not today. Came to life when they had to, with the substitution. but then sat back again.
Yeah.
And let's be quite frank about this. Spain scored 2 wonderful goals, and I mean brilliant goals. But it could have been 3 or 4. Dani Olmo missed a very good chance. Lamine Yamal missed a couple. And also, Spain lost, you could argue, the best midfielder in Europe at half-time in Rodri.
Yeah.
So they were absolutely brilliant and thoroughly deserved it.
Yeah, most definitely. As we've seen throughout this whole tournament.
I don't. You're completely right, and you know, people you speak to on the phone, nobody can disagree with you. No one can disagree with the assumption that Spain have been the best team during the tournament. They were the better team today. They made the better chances, albeit England had a really good chance, which was cleared off the line right at the very end. But that was down to kick, hope, panic stations. Spain could have been 2-3 up. England started the second half really poorly. Spain, losing Rodri, started it on, electrically, made really good chances. The first goal was beautiful. The winner was a lovely goal as well. And I said all along, if England's performances haven't been good enough and they needed to buck the trend today, and they didn't.
Yeah.
And the best team in the whole tournament carried on in the same vein that they have, won the 7th game on the trot, scored goals like they have done, defended really stoutly, and have lifted the trophy.
It's why I say football won, because that's not against it's not against the English. It's against all the other teams, and France included. Especially France, we didn't show anything. And the 2 favourites were England and France. And we can say that overall, we are very disappointed with all performances they had. And in the contrary, Spain, for 7 games, they kept the tactic that they had, the way that they wanted to play. I think they should have killed the game earlier. And Dani Olmo had a big chance, and after Lamine Yamal also. But overall, they tried to play vertical. They were very positive in their thoughts. When they scored the first goal, they kept the team very high. Everything was perfect in their side. And now we can say that England didn't play. They played like they had to go forward because they conceded the goal, because they were losing. And as soon as they score, they dropped.
England
crazy.
All the guys that play at their clubs that are used to having possession of the ball, right? Foden, Kane, Saka, Bellingham, Rice. They're all playing. I mean, you watch any of the teams that they play for. Arsenal, Real Madrid, Man City,
Bayern
Munich. They dominate. They dominate games. They pass the ball. And yet, these guys come into this England side and you're telling me all of a sudden they can't retain possession of the ball?
No.
This is down to... And I know international football's a little different, but that's not down to the fact that tactically and talent-wise they can't do it, because they're some of the best players in Europe. It comes down to the approach. And there might be a bit of a pile-on with Harry Kane, because he's clearly been off his game in this tournament. But England can't use that as an excuse, because the Spanish have won that without a guy who's, one of the best, really. Morata's not. He does a job.
Yeah.
But he's not a brilliant striker. They've done it because other facets of the team have been excellent. The 2 guys in the middle of the park for most of the tournament, Fabian Ruiz and Rodri, just want to get on the ball and boss the games. And Dani Olmo wants to do a bit of both. He wants to get back, work his backside off and help them, and then get up and make himself a threat at the other end. And the 2 youngsters, pace, width, and they want to start. The first thing they want to do, Williams and Lamau, is take the ball and turn and go forward. England, at this tournament, too happy to go back the way.
And the best example is, and I'm going to Gary Southgate, Cole Palmer. How come that player didn't play before? Southgate needed like 10 to 15 minutes to make the substitution with Cole Palmer, with Ollie Watkins, and to put the urgency onto the pitch. That's something unbearable for me, because Cole Palmer should have played from start.
But explain this part to me. Once Cole Palmer scores, we were saying, go for it now. Go for that second goal.
Yeah.
Why? Gareth Southgate's not on the touchline saying, get back, go deep.
I exclude him on that matter, because it's only up to the players.
That's the players?
Yeah, that's the players.
But these are all players who, as Craig said, top-level players playing for big clubs. Psychologically, why does that happen?
I can't even answer, because we see that Spain scoring a goal, as I explained just before, staying up on the field, very high on the field, where England, they scored the goal, say, okay, we're going to go to penalties. That's crazy. They are the only one who can say why they do that. Because they had psychological.
They have the momentum.
They have the momentum.
Yeah.
And when they score the goal, so you're above Spain, and you allow Spain to come back to heal from the problem and finish you. That's impossible in football. You cannot do that, and especially from experienced player, as you said, who knows exactly what it is to have the ball and to make the others suffer. Didn't happen.
What is it? 7 games to win the tournament.
Yes.
England have had what, a good 45 minutes against a very average Holland side, and they hung in this first half today. It wasn't a great first half. In fact, England had the only shot on target, which was Phil Foden.
Yeah, the first half wasn't very good.
But still, they were outplayed in the first half. It wasn't brilliant, but they were completely torn apart in the second half. I mean, some of the Spanish football, it's not 2010, 2008 or 2012, for sure. That's a difficult mantle to follow. But some of the football was terrific, wasn't it? I mean, Cucurella's not playing regular at his club. You've got 2 centre-halves, one of them in Saudi Arabia. Got 2 youngsters up in the wide positions. But they've been just so good to watch. And you talk about you can't put things on Gareth Southgate. I think you can with this coach.
But what about what I was trying to...
I think you can with the Spanish
What about them
coach?
dropping off when they get the equaliser?
Dan, I think that's just psychological, and everybody does it. You get back into the game, and then your first instinct is to defend what you have. And England getting back into the game 1-1, they've suddenly just gone, right, we're back in the game, let's just defend. Let's just get drop and let's just defend. It's wrong, of course it's wrong, because you are on top of the game. The crowd are on your side. We've got the majority, England's had the majority of the crowd today. So you should have tried to put your foot to the metal and get after Spain. But I understand, because we've all played in games when you're leading and you're holding on for dear lives at the end and you're just trying to get over the line. I've played in games like that myself.
Steve, allow me to jump on that matter. Why Southgate doesn't go almost on the field and say, oh, guys, come on!
Well, at times he did. In his defence, at times he was telling them to push up. But sometimes when you're getting outplayed and the ball's getting popped around you, you just sort of go, well, I've closed down once, I've closed down twice, and the ball's gone past me. So now I'm not going to go. I'm just going to stand. I'm just going to sit in the shape, and that's what's happened. And when you're playing against the best, Lamine Yamal got best young player of the tournament. Rodri got player of the tournament. The Spanish have just dominated this tournament right the way through. And sometimes you just hold your hands up and say, England tried to close the game down in the first half. They tried to make it ugly, and to a certain extent they did, because Spain were not great in the first half. But in the 15 minutes of the second half, Spain got a little kick up the backside by the manager or whoever's given the kick up the backside, and they come out like a different team. First goal was beautiful.
Yeah, let's talk through that first goal. Obviously, it started with Carvajal.
Yes. Ball to Carvajal, and the outside of the ball, the flick with the outside of his right boot into the path of Lamine Yamal, who played Nico Williams in. And then Nico Williams finished it really, really well for a young man with limited experience. Kept his eye on the ball, and it was a lovely goal. And then they made another chance, and then another chance, and another chance. Danny almost should have scored, should have been the leading goal scorer, but he pulled his shot wide. And the writing was on the wall then for England. The writing was on the wall. We had to make a change after, Gareth had to make a change by bringing Harry Kane off, because he would have been criticised for not doing it. And then you get back in the game, and then it just goes against you at times, doesn't it? But for me, it's not a huge problem.
Here is Erik Ten Hag on Manchester United's competition this season. He says we're caught up and we're capable of competing with the best teams in England. Then you're trying to compete with the best teams in the world. Some teams like Real Madrid, of course, who are a very good team. Our challenge is now to do this more consistently. With young players, there will be ups and downs, and we have to realise that. Everyone has to realise this in the club internally, but also you, the media, should realise this externally. It's normal that it will not only go up with young people, young players especially. Now, obviously, when he's saying you, he means the media. And you need to realise, Stevie, that there are ups and downs when it comes to young players, all right?
Well, he needs to go and talk to Fergie then. How the ups and downs of young players when they win the league. I mean, I seriously don't understand what this guy's trying to say most of the time. Actually, I think I praised him the other night after the injuries with the two boys. I thought he did really well. He spoke really well. He said the right thing. He didn't complain about it. He said it's part of the game. I thought, aye, sounds a bit sensible. And then he goes and drops this bombshell on us about competing at the highest level.
What's he dropped Real Madrid in for?
They're light years away from Real Madrid.
Well, that's the next step now. That's the next
not
level.
the next step.
That's the next step. Well, that's what he's saying here.
Well, that's what we're saying. We haven't got a clue what he's saying.
When were they competing with the big boys?
When were they competing last season? When Bournemouth went to Old Trafford and turned them over 3 and it could have been 7. When Palace beat them 4 or 5 at the end of the season, could have been 9. They got embarrassed in the Champions League. It was the worst Champions League campaign for, I don't know, 40-odd, 50-odd years. It was embarrassing, some of the results that they had.
31 points behind Man City. So they gave Man City gave them 10 games of a start and still beat them. I mean, seriously. Honestly, Erik, come on. Just calm down. If you don't know what to say, don't say anything.
Here we go again, having a go at Manchester United. How can you have a go at one of the biggest football brands in the world? And no. And they're 8th in the league. Don't kill me. I'm winding you up, Stevie. And I succeeded.
You succeeded. Easy. You succeeded.
Easy. Yes.
Easy. Hold me back.
But I think sometimes when we discuss Ten Hag, sometimes when we discuss Manchester United, let's start with the fact, because they will always say we have a go at Manchester United. They were 8th in the league. Don said there were some games terrible. I think the next step for Manchester United, the next step for Erik Ten Hag is Fulham at home on the first Friday of the Premier League season. I'll be there. A lot of people will be having a look. Have they taken another step? What is good at Manchester United at the moment is off the pitch. They're good organised. They have a transfer strategy. They have good people in different new positions at the club. That's good. And then we have to see how the whole August, the whole transfer window will take. I see no signal right yet with the signing that they will be like up there competing with the best teams in England. I may be wrong. And people will say we're having a go at Manchester United again. Yes, they won the FA Cup final. They deservedly won the FA Cup final. Yes, they got 2 trophies over 2 seasons. But I guess sometimes, I'm with Steve there, with Erik Ten Hag, sometimes I'm not sure what he's talking about. I mean, he came from Ajax. He was supposed to do an Ajax system. I haven't seen that. Every player is Dutch. He will get them. We'll probably talk more of another one a bit later as well. So there is a lot of things to do for Erik Ten Hag. But the main thing for a Manchester United manager to do is to win football games. Win football games. And with young players, talk to Real Madrid. They won the Champions League and they changed the whole team into young players.
Okay, I would have more affection for Erik Ten Hag if he come out and turned around and said, look, this is going to take an awful long time. It's going to take a long time. I need to get a lot of players out of this dressing room. I need to turn the ship around. Bear with me, Man United
Well, what
fans.
would happen if he said that?
Well, no, but I think a lot of Man United fans, if he was very honest and clear, I think they'd half get on board with it. As Stevie said, they were 31 points behind City. They're light years away from even mentioning Real Madrid. So if you turned around and you're ultra honest and you say it with conviction and you say, listen, it's going to take a while. I need to get some players out of this dressing room. I need to change the culture. He had a lot of problems to deal with Marcus Rashford off the pitch, Ronaldo off the pitch, different players being late, this, that and the other. I think a lot of Man United fans would half jump on board with it and go, he's right, you know. It might take a long time.
But is it,
that 2 years
that's 2
That's what I'm
seasons,
saying.
yeah?
Done that 2 years
This
ago.
is what I'm saying. That's why I've more. But then last year, he turns around and says, we are the most entertainment team in the Premier League. And you go, come on.
It's too late
We
to
know
be
our
honest.
football. You can't kid us.
It's too late for him, to be honest.
Yeah.
Basically.
And we know also, boys, that in a dressing room, we're talking about the fans, how they're reacting to those kinds of interviews. You sit there and when you hear a manager, you play a game and you know that it's not an entertaining game. And you say that this is a fantastic game. And you think, what is he talking about? I mean, we are not playing well. I tell you what, there is two managers, 2 clubs. I'll give them 3 months and then they have to then we'll see what's happening. That is Erik Ten Hag at Manchester United and is Vincent Kompany at Bayern Munich. That is 2 different. The project of Kompany in Bayern, well, let's see. He's even closer to sack straight away. But Erik Ten Hag is there as well. He needs to win football games.
That leads me perfectly, Jan, to what I want to ask you next, because we're seeing a joint bid for Matthijs de Ligt and Nusair Mazraoui from Manchester United, obviously from Bayern. I want to talk first about the Matthijs de Ligt side of things. You alluded to the Dutchman earlier. Lenny Yoro comes back to full fitness. Obviously, he's got injured now in the pre-season. Is Matthijs de Ligt not just going to find himself in the same scenario again that he found himself in at Bayern, but in a team that isn't as strong this season?
Well, first of all, I looked through that today. We had a podcast about it. I talked to a lot of people in Germany, and he was told at the Euros that Bayern wanted to sell him by the media. Point one, that's the transfer strategy of Bayern. He was told by the media. Today, Friday, he came back for tests at Bayern. He wants to leave the club, but now suddenly they're thinking, we don't think Manchester United would pay the amount of money that we expect from him. This is Bayern. So Bayern is saying, we want to get rid of a player. We don't think he is good enough for our team, and we want 50 million for him. But we're going to pick Tah from Leverkusen for 25. That is some interesting math doing. So the guy we want 25, and the boy we don't want, 50. So, and just put it out in the room as well. The same thing that Vincent Kompany is coming in with his playing from the back kind of thing. And he tells us he doesn't want De Ligt, but he wants Upamecano to stay at the club. I have no clue what he's talking about.
OK, but with the De Ligt side of things, if Manchester United are to secure a player like De Ligt, do you see him playing regularly for them under Erik ten Hag?
Absolutely. De Ligt is underestimated. A lot of the Bayern Munich fans are going crazy because they want to sell him. Yes, there has been injuries. He had some shoulder injuries. There has been some thing about that as well. Remember back in the days when he was at Ajax, when Manchester United said they didn't want the player because they had looked at his father, who was a bit heavy when he got older? That was a transfer strategy of Manchester United back in the days, that he was a bit... I'm not sure if you can say it, his father was a bit big. You know what I'm saying. So De Ligt is coming, and he will play. He is a leader, and if he's fit, I mean, that's always the thing. If he's fit, he will be a great, great centre-half for Manchester United.
Subtlety always a key point from Jan. We love that about him. You're not a Mazraoui fan, Don?
Only because of his injury list. He's picked up far too many injuries, and he's very, very inconsistent. When he turns it on and when he plays and he's confident, he looks like you think, wow, this guy's incredible, because he's quick, he's good at going forward, he's got a trick. But when he's off form, he looks like he's miles off it. So that tells me when you're talking about a player who's inconsistent, who's got the talent to be brilliant, that tells me he's a confidence player. And if he's confident, he can play well. If he's not confident, he can go into a sort of shell, be half the player. But when I looked at his injury list, for a 26-year-old, he's been missing for an awful lot of games. You know, every single season he's averaging close to missing like 20 games a season, which is a worry.
Do you agree or disagree with Don, Jan?
No, I agree with him. I mean, you could say that about De Ligt as well, but he's not even close to Mazraoui. And Manchester United got to watch out, because they have a tradition of getting players in at the wrong stage of their career. It's quite interesting that Bayern Munich and Manchester United are in the same position. They need to get rid of players. They need to get rid of 4-5 players. And these are going to be big names they got to get out. The problem is that every other club know they want to take them out, and they don't want to give them the money for it. So it's a quite interesting situation also with the financial system in England at the moment, that they don't want to overpay players from the Bundesliga. So I'm 100% sure of De Ligt, Mazraoui not so much.
If they do get these two players in, Stevie, what are you going to be your expectations if you're bringing players in to try and strengthen the team? What are they expected to do at the very least?
Well, you're looking at two guys that don't play and haven't played. I mean, what is your expectation? I mean, normally, if Man United decide to pay 50 million for De Ligt...
All right, let me put it then fairer. If you get them in, what's the team expected to do? If you're saying these are the men to make our team better, what are we expecting from the team then?
Top four.
Well, no, I don't think you can say that, because you're bringing in two guys, one who's injury-prone, the other one who at Ajax, I was hoping would join Liverpool. I was hoping I would be watching De Ligt and Van... I was going to say Dick Van Dijk there. Virgil van Dijk. I was looking,
all right, geezer.
I was looking. We're good in the dance floor. I was thinking, and what a great Dutch partnership for Liverpool, De Ligt and Van Dijk. But then, after 12 months at Bayern Munich, I thought, what's happened to this guy? He did look slow. He did look overweight. He did look as though he wasn't quite sure. Now, maybe maybe Upamecano didn't help him any because he went downhill pretty fast as well. So I don't know what you can expect.
They're not going to move the needle that much, are they? But to be wanting top four, they're miles away from.
There's no chance you could turn around and say you sign these two and they should be in the top four. Not a chance. Not a chance. You're hoping that these two play regularly and play well.
I think
that's all you can hope for to begin with.
I think your question was fair about Yoro, him being injured, you know, and they shouldn't put too much pressure on the teenager going into a club like Man United and being like the star boy, even though he's a brilliant young player and he could be phenomenal. But that's a big shirt to pull on.
Pressure comes with that price tag.
No, it
well,
does. It does, but you can go back 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties. You can go back to the very biggest of clubs. Man United, the Liverpools, the Barças, the Real Madrids, the Bayerns. Some shirts weigh very heavy. So I think Yoro's going to be a fantastic signing. But if they buy De Ligt and they've got Lisandro Martinez and they've got Maguire, and I think Jan's spot on, they're going to have to shift a few. But how do you shift Harry Maguire when he nearly went to West Ham last year? And I think, I'm not sure if it was 10 or 15 million pounds that he wanted himself to try and get out of there. Who's going to pay close to 50, 60 million pounds for Harry Maguire? I'm not sure.
Again, you're shifting players that you can't rely on to go and bring in two players that you can't rely on. So that doesn't make any sense. Listen, if you pray, you're hoping that either one of them do what Mo Salah's done. You know, when Liverpool signed Mo Salah, I'm thinking of the Mo Salah at Chelsea. I'm thinking, wow. Are you really sure that this guy's going to be able to be the answer
when you put the two
he's already
players,
played at Chelsea and been pretty awful? And that's what you're thinking about when you sign these two guys.
When you look at the profile of Harry Maguire and De Ligt, and you stand them up and you go, they're quite similar. So is there any point selling Harry Maguire for big money and bringing De Ligt in? You're just sort of changing the personnel. You're not really changing too much on the pitch.
I think that is a very valid point that Don is saying now, because now in this period, and when you're starting the season, we see who's in, who's out. You have to compare it with the players they are replacing. Even by Real Madrid, we say Mbappe, it will come in. How much better is he that the player goes out? Even there, of course, Mbappe is one of the best in the world. But when you get De Ligt in and Maguire, yeah, and then you get a right back in, how much better is he than De Ligt? And things like that. You have to do that all the time. You need to go from position 8 in the Premier League. You need to get in signings who are game changers. Will that be an 18-year-old? I am not sure, but that is another department as well, because you take an 18-year-old supposedly on his way to Real Madrid, maybe Manchester United overpaid a bit, but still, it's a signal. You take one of the most promising young centre-halves and you take him to Manchester United. The problem with Manchester United, when you're challenging your neighbour Manchester City, let's take that is the champion. You need players who are game changers. And at Manchester United at the moment, there are not many game changers. I'm not saying they could be 6th, they could be 5th, maybe so. But to take the next step, they need to have big players in. And I'm not sure Manchester United will get those players.
I would have thought a number 9 would have been a priority over De Ligt.
Yeah.
It was now a Højlund being out for 3 months. And he's a young player anyway. That's the most important. I would say that's the most important area of the pitch. If you're going to go from outside the Champions League spots into the top 4, you need a number 9 that's going to get you close to 25.
A little more juicy. Ron puts the boot in. Erik's got it all wrong, and Erik gets run over. This is to do with Cristiano Ronaldo speaking to former United teammate Rio Ferdinand on a podcast about Erik ten Hag. He said the coach says they cannot compete to win the Premier League and Champions League. As Manchester United coach, you cannot say that you're not going to fight to win the league or Champions League. Mentally, you can say maybe we don't have that potential, but I cannot say that. We're going to try. You have to try. Now, obviously, this was put to Ten Hag today, so let's hear what he had to say about it.
Cristiano Ronaldo has voiced his opinion on Manchester United to Rio Ferdinand, and one of the things that he said was, you can't say that you can't win the Premier League at Manchester United. What is your view of that, and can Manchester United win the Premier League?
He said that Manchester United can't win the Premier League.
He said that you...
No, he said this. Have you read the article very well? And so he's far away from Saudi, or far away from Manchester. Everyone can have, and is entitled to have an opinion. It's okay.
Obviously, the international break, there's a lot of noise. How does it impact you? Do you block it out? I mean, how do you deal with it? Because
doesn't impact me. I know in the process where we are and what we have to do, where we are going. I have said before, we are still in a transition period. We have to integrate a lot of young players also in the team. We are still dealing with injuries. We have to bring the injuries back in the team. And before anyone thinks about excuses, no, we have to win every game. I know that, the team knows this, and doesn't matter who are available. And yeah, we will focus on every game and have in every game the mindset we have to win.
Frank LeBeuf still with us. What do you think of this back and forth with Cristiano?
Well, but did Erik Ten Hag,
Hag,
has he said that? I don't know if he has. I don't know. I have no idea. Look, I don't think anybody thinks they're in a position to challenge for the Premier League, not least the Champions League. Not even close. What we have here is a former player who was out of favour, wasn't playing well, and was basically surplus to requirements for that manager. And I think he's quite happy to go on with another ex-United player and have a dig. Look, most of the guys here have been pretty hard on Ten Hag with some of the things he said and done. But I don't mind the way he handled that, really. He just sort of batted it away, swatted it away for what it was worth. And as I say, Ronaldo was at United. He was playing poorly. He was a bit of a problem in the end. He was on a lot of money. Nobody else, and I think it was Stevie touched on this the other day, nobody else really wanted to touch him. And certainly not in the wages he was on in Europe in terms of the big teams. Had a poor Euros, and he's playing in Saudi Arabia. And so I don't really see it. And it's a bit like Ten Hag. He brushed that off because he's got a million other things to worry about than a former player who's playing in a backwater somewhere, jibing away about Man United. That's nothing new.
But to that point, and I think while you still have the history, Ronaldo's trying to make the point that winning is a mentality that clearly has been a little bit lost at Manchester United of late. And of course, Ronaldo was critical of Ten Hag, given their history, but I mean, that was lost some time ago. The truth is, United are nowhere near being able to compete, let alone win serious silverware. And while, yes, they've, as Ten Hag, I'm sure, would point out, they've won 2 cups, particularly the FA Cup kind of came almost as a surprise. But this is a United that is still trying to find its way since Alex Ferguson, and they're nowhere closer. To that point, and I continue to grow less and less convinced by Ten Hag. And even in addressing Ronaldo's criticism, it's the same old, this is a process, and we're going through things, and we're building for the future. But over the last 2 years, there's been little evidence of that. I can't tell you what United have done in terms of building towards that future, while trying to win football games, a majority of football games, at the same time. So I'm with Ronaldo in the criticism, but at the same time, I just don't see the direction that Ten Hag is trying to take this club.
Yeah, and speaking with what Ten Hag had to say, Frank, you hear him say, obviously, it's a transition, but then he says no excuses. So what's it to be?
I don't really know. It's hard to say. As he tried to tell us, it will take a time and maybe a learning process of being winners in order to say one day we can win the Premier League. About that, I just want to say that I understand Cristiano. Cristiano's just say, maybe you know you cannot win, but don't say it. That's what it is. We all know the history behind, between those two guys. But I think Cristiano is right. When you are Manchester United, you don't have to say we're going to win the Premier League, but please don't say you're not going to win it. Because that's the standard of the club. You never know what can happen. The fans don't want to hear that. They want to hear that, as I think it's Craig's mentioned, that you have to have a mentality, winning mentality. And saying that is already making a statement that, no, we can do it. We are losers or we are runner-ups. But not saying it opens maybe some hopes, and therefore, yeah, you don't have to say you won the Premier League, but maybe you give a chance to chance.
I love that tagline there. Ten Hag fires back at Ronaldo. If that's firing back, I've been hit harder with a feather duster. If that's firing back, I don't know. Well, it was very meek, wasn't it? Look, listen, I'll pick on the United manager and others for what they do and what they say, really, more around the football. This is international break, player spouting off. I don't want to say it again, but it's a disgruntled player who's sort of coming towards the end of his career. And I get it, it's a winning mentality at Man United, but that was the old Man United. This is a big cliff they've fallen off, big cliff. And I think nobody within their right mind at the moment would look at it and say, I mean, most of the people on here have got them at the very, very best, they're going to struggle to try and compete for the top four. And that's a good season for them, really good. So, you know, as I say, Ten Hag's got much more to worry about than Ronaldo spouting off.
Well, he's got Southampton to worry about this weekend on Saturday.
Yeah,
However,
he can't afford to lose.
Yeah, well, Southampton have lost 3 on the trot. Manchester United just 1 behind them in terms of losses, which is why they are in their respective positions in the table. Manchester United in 14th with just 3 points after 3 games. Southampton with no points after those 3 games. And as you said, Craig, United can't afford to lose this.
No, they've got a couple of games that are, I can't remember who the next one is. It might be Crystal Palace or so a team that are one of the teams that are struggling, but he's got to get this one out of the way first. I mean, if you come off the international break, off the pasting by, it was the last game Liverpool, I think it was.
Liverpool 3-0.
Yeah, just pretty much a non-event really. For Liverpool, it was a cakewalk. You come off that and you lose to Southampton. I mean, the knives are already starting to come back.
You're right about it being Palace after that as well.
Sorry?
You're right that it is Palace after that.
Away.
Away as well, yeah.
Who went to Chelsea recently and got a good result. Have had a tough start to the season. But that's a tougher game than Southampton on paper. But this sort of goodwill from the FA Cup win, which was a surprise, took him into the summer, sort of saved his job, even though United were looking elsewhere. You know, convinced everybody that he would try to convince everybody he was still the man. There's not a lot of convincing has happened in the first three or 4 games of the season. So he's already back on the clock, I think. Now, defeat here, you know, if he's picking up 1 point out of the next 6 against these 2 teams, and then I think he goes into a cup game, he's bang in trouble again. Because you're expected to go to a newly promoted side like Southampton and roll them over, even as bad as United are. So this is a huge game for him, a huge 2 games. Loses both, and I really don't see how Ineos and all these new people that have come in, Dan Ashford, Jason Wilcox, Sir Dave Brailsford, you know, Jim Ratcliffe with the money, I don't know how they can sit back if he loses the next 2 games. They could be actually in the bottom 3. There's no way, I don't see how he can survive that. I really don't. So that's how tight it's going to be for him.
I'll go further. You cannot lose to Southampton. You can't.
Do you think he goes if he loses to Southampton?
I think he has to. At best, you lose to Southampton, you kind of limp along to the next international window. And I say at best because I'm just kind of assuming that Ineos and all the powers that be haven't really figured out who the next manager is yet. But it gives them, 3 weeks to mid-October to figure that out. That is absolutely at best. And that is only if Manchester United, as we speak, have no idea who they'd like to succeed Ten Hag if they were to replace him sooner rather than later.
Why did you bring up the next international window? I've only just got out of this one.
I know you're looking forward to it.
I know.
I know you're counting down the days.
Crossing the days off on the calendar.
News for you. I've got news for you. I'm going away.
Ineos know that. Ineos know that, so they know Craig's going to be away, so this is the perfect time.
1 step ahead of us. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, I just want to add that it's not even a defeat that could risk Ten Hag's positioning. I think even drawing away from home against Southampton, who lost the 3 first games, could put him in danger. if he draws the two next game, that's not Manchester United, positioning that that you could find. They could be in the last 3 drawing the 2 last game, which is not the standard of what Manchester United, and I'm not talking about the past Manchester United, even the nowadays Manchester United should do. So they have to win. First at Southampton for sure. They have to win. They have to get 3 points. Maybe a draw against Crystal Palace will be enough. 4 points in 2 games, that's not too bad. But a draw against Southampton, a draw against Crystal Palace, could be the end of Mr. Ten Hag.
But we kick things off with the news that Ten Hag sacked as manager of Manchester United. Just a reminder, where he leaves the club, they sit 14th in the table, 9 games, 11 points, of course, aside that lost yesterday against West Ham. For more on this, we welcome in Mario, who almost decided not to come on the show because of the treatment of Dutch managers in the Premier League. Unfortunately, we managed to persuade him on.
Real Madrid.
But we start there with Mark Ogden. Mark, I suppose the obvious question is why today?
Well, I think the West Ham defeat of the weekend was the final straw. Obviously, they could have got rid of him any time this season after so many bad results. But the way I've been told is that they were looking to get 70 points this season, getting the top 4, 70 points. They were averaging 1.2 points per game. Last season, they finished with 60 points on 1.6 points per game. So they're doing even worse than last season. So having given him the summer, signed some players, started the season, they were hoping it would get better. I think they were kind of thinking that it couldn't be any worse than last season and that all the issues that they had last season would be overcome. It hasn't been the case. They got worse and they've run out of patience. But the question is, why didn't they act 2 or 3 weeks ago when they could have done with an international break? Well, that may come to haunt them, but obviously they seem to be making progress with the replacement in Ruben Amorim. So perhaps the timing, the story may unfold in the next few days that they felt they had to wait to get the right guy in the club. But still, they just wasted more time by letting him hang on for the West Ham game. There was no sign of progression throughout this season, so I think they could have got rid of him at any time.
There was no sign of progression, Xhaka, throughout his time. That's the problem. And you take a look at what happened, obviously, with the FA Cup final against Manchester City. That just seemed to be a massive band-aid that kind of made everyone forget, well, certainly those in charge forget enough to give him a new contract. But really, this was inevitable, wasn't it?
Absolutely, it was. First of all, as a former West Ham player, I'm kind of glad they waited until now. West Ham needed those 3 points. But I've said this throughout. I wouldn't have renewed Ten Hag's. I would have replaced Ten Hag after the FA Cup final. Yeah. And listen, I understand the sentiment that comes with winning the FA Cup final and maybe how that was viewed by the fan base. But really, when you look at the body of his work, particularly over the course of last season, particularly the back end of last season, there was just no argument to keeping, let alone enact that 1-year extension, which is, again, is even more bemusing to me as to why they do that, and then continue to back him financially in the way that they did. Listen, let me take that back. I guess if you decide to stay with him, you have to back him in the summer transfer window. But now all you've done is kind of add to the spending. Now you're going to have a new manager who's going to want to come in. He's going to have his own ideas about who he wants. Listen, if Amorim is announced as a new boss, at least he worked with Ugarte, so maybe that's not money all down the drain. But it's just one bad footballing decision after the next from the Manchester United leadership. And as a result, they now find themselves, well, a quarter way into the season, struggling in the table and not really sure what direction they're going here.
You've ruined the season. Season's done. You know, what's Manchester United aim now? Maybe retain the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup. No, that's it. That's where they stand now. And if they made a decision in the summer, at least you could start with a fresh start.
Yeah, and you know who else would have benefited from making that decision in the summer? Probably Erik Ten Hag. Walking out of the club saying, hey, I just won the FA Cup. Now he's walking out the back door. And obviously, at that point, he would have thought, oh, no. I can turn this around. Yeah. And every manager thinks that they can turn it around. So there has to be other people that are able to make sound decisions that are well thought out, with objectives in mind, and an actual objective evaluation of what the time of Erik Ten Hag had been up until that point. And even those people that are in that position were blinded by the FA Cup. Now, here we are, and nobody's surprised. We keep talking about the word progression.
I think we should talk about regression when it comes to Manchester United and Erik ten Hag. There was never a sign of progress. There were always signs of going backwards and backwards and further backwards and further backwards. And just when you thought you couldn't go even further back, there he goes, we're going even further back. Every hour and every day that Erik ten Hag was in place as the manager of Manchester United meant that the gap between them and the top clubs in the Premier League, in fact, the top clubs anywhere, was getting wider and wider, bigger and bigger. And that difference and that gap was never going to come closer. This day has had to come a long time ago, but I suppose better late than never.
But I suppose also, Mario, we were kind of waiting for Manchester United to find their identity under Ten Hag as he obviously got that Ajax team together, which got him on the radar as to why he made that switch to Manchester United. Are you surprised that we never saw that in the end?
No, I clearly haven't seen it myself because, you know, I come out of that culture, and when he came over, people have to understand, he came out of a different way of playing when he came to Ajax. He adjusted himself really well, and I think that's where he built his success. But then coming to Man United, it's a different thing. I think sometimes, you know, in our country, it's sometimes that people look at players and coaches, and now they really understand how difficult it is. Because sometimes they don't realize, I think, sometimes they might take it like, oh, you know, you want to compare leagues. No, you can't. It's not the same thing. And I said that already in the beginning. But what happened to him is that he won the trophy, but then they kept him on because I think if they couldn't find a replacement, that's why they kept him on. But what they did then is they started to invest. And now the guys that they invested in are in a similar situation as he was, kind of unpredictable. I could not understand what they were planning with him. And I think as an individual, you will have that feeling too. So that's why now Man United is in a situation, and it's not going to be easy. Whoever comes in, you saw what happened at Chelsea. We were sitting here and talking about teams, and Man U is going to be a hell of a job too.
It's interesting, Mark, like we'll talk about the possibility of new manager in the moment, but whoever comes in, if you take a look at the starting 11, I think we discussed this on Extra Time last week, if you're building a team that can battle for the title, that can go head-to-head against Manchester City, against Arsenal, that can compete against Liverpool, how many of these players are you really hanging your hat on? Maybe Onana, maybe Fernandes, maybe Garnacho, but apart from that, there's very little evidence for any of the other players that they can come in and they can lift Manchester United to the level that we expect them to be. So how much is this down to recruitment and players, and does it matter who the new manager is?
It's the recurring problem at Man United, isn't it? The recruitment beyond the last 10 years since Alex Ferguson left has been really poor, and it's left them with the squad now that the new manager, whoever he is, walks in, and he'll have a squad of players that dates back. There's Louis van Gaal players in that squad. There's Jose Mourinho players in that squad. They haven't moved players on at the right time. It's not as much been about recruitment, which has been bad. It's also really about retaining players that haven't been good enough for too long. You know, you can put Diogo Dalot into that bracket. You know, he's still there, having been signed by Jose Mourinho. You know, he does okay. Well, we saw the miss at the weekend against West Ham, but he's not good enough for Man United. And you're right, there are so many players there that, you know, Ten Hag brought them in from teams all over the world, but most have played for Ajax, you know, at some point in their career, and they haven't been good enough. And I think it's going to be difficult. That the idea that United have got is that whoever comes in, and we think it's going to be Ruben Amorim, but if he comes in, he will. I imagine they will expect him to get more out of the squad he's got, and I think that's a fair ask. I think Ten Hag was out of his depth. He couldn't get the players to perform the way he wanted. I don't think he ever got to grips with the Premier League. I think applying the tactics that were successful in Holland with Ajax never worked in the Premier League. Arne Slot's found a way, but Erik ten Hag never did. I think that the new manager will get more out of the players they've got, but you're right. I think ultimately there isn't enough quality in that squad to make them challengers even for the top four. That squad is desperately lacking in pace in key positions. Garnacho's got pace on the wing, fine, but there's no pace in the middle of the pitch. So even if Pep Guardiola came in tomorrow, he couldn't address that problem because he's got no pace in the middle of the pitch, and the window doesn't open until January, and you're not going to sign 4 or 5 players that can suddenly get around the pitch. So that's his problem, the new guy. He's got a lot of players who just aren't equipped physically or ability-wise to play for Man United, but that's going to take so long to change. Erik ten Hag had a massive overhaul of players, you know. In 2.5 years, he got a lot of players out, he got a lot of players in, but ultimately the players he brought in, they just weren't good enough. There was nobody at the club maybe apart from Steve McLaren, who was his assistant until he left in the summer, to tell him, with the experience of English football, to say, Erik, those players aren't going to cut it in English football. He was just allowed to sign players that weren't good enough. And it happened this summer. I was told today that the club weren't totally sold on signing Matthijs de Ligt and Nizar Mizraoui from Bayern Munich, but because they'd given Ten Hag a new deal and they wanted to show support in the manager, they backed his judgment that spending £50 million on those two defenders was worth it. Now, I think Mizraoui's been okay. I think he's been an improvement on Wan-Bissaka, but de Ligt, you know, his big reputation, but is he any better than Harry Maguire? He's not very quick. He's not very good with the ball at his feet, but he's coming on big wages for a big fee, and he's back to square one. He's just another player that's overpaid and costs too much money.
Can I just say that, and I understand what Augie's saying, but this is not limited to the struggles of Manchester United in English football, and that these players cannot play in English football. Because when they go to play in Europa League, they struggle too, right? And so the struggles of Matthijs de Ligt were well documented even before he showed up and walked through the door at Manchester United. And as he was going to Manchester United, the question was, wait. Did you not see him at Juventus? Did you not see him at Bayern Munich? This guy has been struggling. And so is this thought, again, and it comes from managers that think that they have the magic wand that somehow is going to touch the player and say, now you're going to get back to your best. Now, because you're here with me, you're going to perform at a high level. Mizraoui was a part-time player at Bayern Munich, riding the bench, easily, comfortably riding the bench. And you were expecting that he was going to be an answer for you. So when it comes to the struggles of these players that we're talking about, one, you chose these players to come. And two, they were struggling even before they came to you. And so this is part of, it's not just about the tactics or the lack of progression from this team. It's also the decisions that you participated and that you made as a manager of the club.
And wasn't Ineos supposed to change all of this? Okay, wasn't this the plan? You know, the Glazers obviously give up a part of it. So Jim Radcliffe, you know, the bicycle bloke as well, the guy who used to play for Blackburn, all would come together and they would save the day and they would change the recruitment. Yet what they've done, obviously, with hindsight, is absolutely stupid to give the keys of the Ferrari to a man who was almost inevitably going to drive it off the cliff.
Oh, they talked a good game. You're right, you know, Dave Brailsford, the guy of, you know, marginal gains. Well, there's been no marginal gains at Man United recently. Like Ali said, they've gone backwards. So there's a naivety there. There's a, I won't say cluelessness because that's probably a little bit harsh, but, you know, when the summer came, they had the opportunity to move him on and get rid, and they didn't do it. So all this big talk about knowing what they were doing and bringing the right people in, they didn't do it. Now, if they suddenly change that around and move quickly and get Ruben Amorim, well done. That's a good move, and they've done that well because he is an up-and-coming coach. But they haven't shown the expertise that we were told they were going to have, and I think that is why United are in this kind of whirlpool of desperation. They're just going nowhere apart from down, and it's sad to see. But you know, they've overseen this demise. They can't blame the Glazers now. I mean, a lot of the problems at United go back a long time, but from today onwards, this is all on Ineos because they've got rid of the manager now. They've made changes in the hierarchy. All of these decisions are now theirs. They have to own this. The new guy comes in, they have to own it. So it's now on them. No more excuses for Ineos.
Ruben, sorry,
I was just going to say, the trouble is, and I think Manchester United's transfer policy kind of highlights the issue in Manchester United, in that you're not quite sure who Manchester United are anymore. And while we think about Manchester United and maybe rightly so as one of the biggest clubs in world football, if commercial revenues are anything to go by, you're bringing in players, and while Ali's right to criticise Matthijs de Ligt, but he's better than what you had. If you ask me, pound for pound, de Ligt is a better defender than Johnny Evans or Harry Maguire. But you're paying top dollar. You're paying Champions League semi-final dollar for a player who is better than mid-table Manchester United. And as a result, you have this kind of weird place that Manchester United are, paying top transfer dollar, paying top wages for players who, let's be honest, 14th is about right for where they are. And for all that of Ten Hag spending, and I was trying to do the math quickly, but in excess of 600 million according to...
You're our math guy in the show, by the way.
600 million according to that graphic that we just had up. And Manchester United's biggest success story, certainly over the last 12 months, has been Kobbie Mainoo, coming out of the academy. So again, is this weird kind of, you just don't know. We don't know who Manchester United are, but more concerningly, I don't think anybody at that club, Ineos included, knows who they are.
It's a sad referendum, Shaq, when you say, and when you try to explain it and you say Matthias de Ligt is better than Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire. Well, yes, yes, yes.
But ironically, he hasn't been better over the last few games.
And Matthias de Ligt, by the way, was benched at Bayern Munich by Eric Dyer. Eric Dyer.
Tell us about Ruben Amorim then, Mark. Big favourite now, obviously, to be the new coach.
Yeah, well, I went over to Portugal to do a piece on Amorim last season when it looked like he was going to go to Liverpool, and that didn't happen. So, but he is an up-and-coming rising star as a coach. He's 39 years old. He's won back-to-back titles with Sporting. They're unbeaten this season at the top of the league, unbeaten in the Champions League. So he really is a guy to watch. But there's two issues with Amorim that I would be a little bit concerned about if I was a United fan. First of all, he's been linked with a lot of clubs and he never leaves Sporting. Liverpool, Bayern, Barcelona, West Ham last season, all had a look at him, none took it on. The second one is that he's absolutely wedded to three at the back. He plays 3-4-3, and that is what he does. That is his system. So, you know, we've seen Antonio Conte was successful in the Premier League with three at the back, but there's not been many others. And if you're going to hire a guy that's got a big reputation, he's got a bit of Mourinho about him. He's got a bit of swagger. He likes himself and he backs it up. But if you're going to Man United mid-season and you're suddenly saying to that back four, we're going to play three at the back now, will it get better quickly or will it get worse quickly? I think long-term it will be a great appointment, but I just think parachute him in mid-season with that squad of players, it could be a difficult situation because I don't know how you play three at the back with those players. I mean, look, you've got full-backs who like to attack. Luke Shaw, if he's ever fit, could be a great left wing-back, but those centre-halves, three at the back, I don't know. I'd ask the guys about that one.
Is he going to get the job, Mark?
I'd be very surprised if he didn't get the job. I think an element of this is that he's earned the right to get a big job now. He is one of he's the next on the rank in terms of the coach in Europe. But one slight fly in the ointment is that 2 weeks ago, Hugo Viana, the sporting director at Sporting, he will move to Man City at the end of the season to replace Chiqui Begiristain. And the talk in Portugal last week was that Amorim is being lined up to replace Pep Guardiola at Man City. Now, obviously, Pep Guardiola right now is still the Man City manager. So is this a ploy by Amorim to find out what's going on with Pep at City and Man United being used? Or has Amorim found out that Pep isn't leaving Man City and if he's going to get a chance in the Premier League, it's now with Man United, so take it. But I do think that the Man City cloud is one that United need to be wary of because Hugo Viana is a big part of what happened at Sporting with Ruben Amorim, and he's gone to Man City. So that's part of the equation.
Can Amorim play up front, Mark? Because let's face it, a big problem that United have, they've got no one to put the ball in the back of the net. You know, stats are stats or whatever. But when it comes to chances created, you know, you look at the fact that they're the fourth best in the Premier League and they can't find the back of the net. 105 chances, 8 goals. Like, we talk about personnel, you talk about whoever it is that comes in, but that's a huge problem that United have to face. Xerxes, you know, Rasmus Højlund, Marcus Rashford,
It's a problem solely of their own making, isn't it? I mean, they spent £110 million on Højlund and Xerxes over the last 2 summers, right? Xerxes, I don't think he'll ever make it. He's not quick enough. He's not dynamic enough to score goals. And Højlund, he might come good, but he's not ready right now. But, you know, the one plus, if you're looking at Ruben Amorim coming in, is Victor Gyökeres at Sporting has been a sensation in the last 18 months at Sporting Lisbon. You know, he was at Coventry City prior to that. And Amorim's taken him to Sporting and turned him into one of the most sought-after strikers in Højlund. So maybe there's a magic touch there. Maybe he knows how to get the best out of strikers. So perhaps Amorim comes in, he turns Højlund into Haaland. Who knows? That's what they're hoping for anyway.
Do you agree? Do you think that you could see Rasmus Højlund becoming Erling Haaland, as Mark Ogden says, it's definitely going to happen, Mario, when the new manager comes in?
No, I think. Look, no, that is never going to happen. But I'm just saying, like, you understand. Look, we have to be honest. When we look at the game, we have to be realistic. I think when a new coach comes in, it's the character that's going to talk, and that is one of the key things. You understand, for the ones that are staying on, because you know what you guys highlighted. You understand. You know, you talked about De Ligt and all those guys. If he's going to play 3 at the back, it's also going to be tricky for them, eh? So you come to a new coach, you come to a new club. I think the biggest issue at Man United has been, you know, since Ten Hag been there, he has always been building his team. And there has to come a moment in football where you say, stop. This is what we have, and now we're going to work on this. And I think I've never seen that at Man United. I have watched Man United, but he have never stopped building. And I think that became the problem. Because every time there was a new player, you talk about the middle of the park, a new player had to come in. You talk about the back end, okay, 2 defenders come in. You're right back, then you know, like De Ligt come in, center defender. So every time they were almost like, it's like a tap was open and you try to, you know, handle the leaking from the tap. And I think that was the biggest problem at Man United, because that's why they never made it to become a proper team that really could compete against anybody, because that's what we're used to. And sometimes we maybe act a little spoiled because Man United always been a top team, and now seeing them fall, everybody's shocked, not even a Man United fan. Like, I'm not a Man United fan, but I'm still watching and going like, what is happening there? And that is not a good sign.
We could be here, obviously, all day going through Manchester United.
Or we could
problems.
fix Mario's leaky tab.
Well, plumbers are expensive. They're expensive, plumbers.
City are the first reigning top-flight champion to lose 5 in a row in all competitions since Chelsea did it in March 1956. And this is a reminder of those last results for them, culminating in this loss today to Tottenham Hotspur. The loss to Brighton before that, 4 put past them by Sporting, beaten by Bournemouth before that, and then of course in cup competition, Spurs against Manchester City as well. Frank Leboeuf is with us right now, looking very sharp and very dapper and very serious about what we're seeing here. I'll get to you in a minute, Frank.
Where are we going to start?
Well, is this a crisis in City's terms?
Minnie, you lose 5 games in the spin and you lose 14 goals in those 5 games, that's a problem. For any team, that's a problem, a big problem. Rodri's not coming back this season. Kovacic is out. He has to he's out at the moment. He has to figure it out. But they are giving teams, and we've talked about this early in the season, they are giving more chances away, they are giving teams more opportunities. And also, there is another facet to this. In those 5 games, they've only scored 4 goals. So it's both ends. And we saw in this game, if you watched it, the first 20 minutes, Erling Haaland missed chances. Hesitant, particularly the first one. But the way that they crumbled, the way that they were so open, that was worrying to me. They play like that, they defend like that against Liverpool next week, it'll be more than 4. I tell you that now. And I know we'll get to Tottenham, because that was there was so many great stories about Tottenham with the players coming back and the players we were missing. But obviously, I got this game so wrong. Tottenham, 2 centre-halves out. Bentancur suspended currently on racism charges. Tottenham away form, 16th in the Premier League in away form. You know, losing at Palace and all this sort of, losing at Brighton.
Missing Romero, missing Van de Ven.
Missing the 2 first starting centre-halves. Got Davis and Dragusin in there. Got Maddison back in the team, who's been out of the team. He's not been playing well. Had his best game by a million miles this season. And so did Kulusevski again. Absolutely brilliant. But I was looking at this going, right, contract signed by the City manager. That cloud has gone. They're at home. They're not going to lose 5 games in the spin. We are going to see a big response from the champions against a weakened, wounded Spurs side that don't travel well. So I'm thinking 3-0. That was my prediction, 3-0 City. I did not see this coming for those reasons. But Tottenham were brilliant, and City, he can smile all he wants. And the questions he's been asked, I think, are relevant. Are this group of players who have done so well for you, do they still have the legs and the desire to drag themselves out of this mini crisis? And that is going to be such a good watch over the next few weeks to see if City are going to respond or not.
Look, there's a lot to unpack from a City perspective. A lot of credit to go to Spurs, which we will get to. This is a crisis. Let's not, we can't hide. This would be a crisis for anybody. Albeit when you're Manchester City and you've won 5 titles in the last 6, you've got enough equity that you can lose 5 or 6 in a row, and people will still believe in you come next season or whenever it is. And while you've lost 5 in a row in all competitions, you're still sitting second in the table. So it's a crisis, but you can absorb that, kind of given City's own record and current standing. Now, while Pep Guardiola is saying that this is not a team that concedes often, I think the point he's trying to make is we don't concede multiple goals in the same game. But City have been struggling to keep clean sheets, which we spoke about all of last season. I think I'm right in saying 13 clean sheets in the league last season. That's not great for a team of City standing, a team that you expect to be sitting top of the Premier League. When you stop keeping clean sheets that way, inevitably you find yourself in this kind of spell where you just can't turn it around. Now, there's a lot. Guardiola, who's proven himself very good up in the attacking third for both club and country. I thought he was very poor defensively today in a way that I've criticised Spurs. I thought Guardiola absolutely mirrored that. And then talking about when you see anybody run by Kyle Walker, that sends alarm bells ringing. Because I can't tell you if I've seen that before. And now all of a sudden, Timo Werner just does nothing special, just runs by Kyle Walker, albeit it's the fourth goal. But then you start to sit back and again to the question, is this team just starting to age out? When you see Gundogan not able to have the legs through midfield, is this team just starting to age out? And you wonder if you do need a rethink. Last thing I'll add is, I thought City were the better team up until the first goal. From the time the first goal went in, the City crowd changed. The City players' heads dropped, and I felt it showed a sign of disbelief on them. But the crowd, you could hear how anxious the crowd was once that first goal went in, and everything just capitulated from there on in.
Is this a City in decline, Frank?
It could be the beginning of it. I mean, there is an era, and it's always the end of an era. And I've been through that with the French national team, and it came like that. And we couldn't do anything in 2002 during the 2002 World Cup, where we lost everything: the fitness, the sharpness, the hunger, the anger, and the fortune. And everything goes together, and suddenly you become average. And it seems to be like that. They have the chances to score with Allen at the beginning of the game. They don't, and suddenly they go down after conceding one goal. So it couldn't be the decline. It could be the end of it, which is sad, but it has to be to rebuild something after and to be again successful. It goes with our lives as football players, where we go up, we go at our best, and suddenly we decline, and that's a speedway of a human life in a way as a football player. But maybe what we're going to see, unless Guardiola finds something miracle. But you don't lose 5 games in a row, conceding so many goals, based on the team who normally get the position and highly on the pitch, and suddenly not having the fitness and being capable of defending. They don't know how to defend. They knew how to get the ball back as soon as possible, to keep on pressurizing the opponent. They don't do that anymore. So they open up and they don't defend well. They don't defend as a unit. So it's worrying for Guardiola and the citizens.
Came out at second half, right? They're trailing 2-0. They're at home, and you said they're flat. City are flat. That's what you were saying at the beginning of the second half. Can you remember seeing them like this?
Well, not off the top of my head, but I mean, look, we'll find out if this side have the energy and the drive to get back. I suspect things will improve. How much, I don't know. Mother Nature doesn't stop for anybody. And there are quite a few getting older. I mean, Gundogan's not going to be the same player he was before he left for Barcelona. Kevin De Bruyne has had his ailments, and he's at times, I mean, he can still do the brilliant stuff when he was on the bench, and he's had some injury problems. But you just feel he's not got that sharpness anymore. Phil Foden's been off form. Savinho's been a flash in the pan. Hasn't been able to, do the stuff at Manchester at the moment that he was doing for Girona thus far. He's looked a little bit lightweight. Does he need to bring Jack Grealish in for a more sustained run of games? We'll find out. When they won the Champions League and the League 2 years ago, he had the balance in this side almost perfect. Yeah, that wasn't a great game against Inter in the final, but most of the performances that season, to Frank's point, was not just about the attacking play, but it was about looking after the defence. It was keeping the back door shut when the others were going forward. They've forgotten how to do that. They have absolutely, it's the cavalry. It's like everybody's bombing forward, and they were so easy to pick off today, and not just today, but particularly today, it was scary. And if they don't figure that out, other teams in the Premier League have and will pick them off. So that's going to be a coaching issue as well as a personnel issue, and we'll find out if he's able to do it. But there's a lot of thinking to be done here. Because any team that loses 5 in a row, most teams that lose 5 in a row are down the bottom of the table and the manager's waiting for the phone call to get the sack. Clearly City are not in that. Clearly City are not in that position, and neither is their manager. But that's what it feels like. 5 games. These players will never have felt that. They've had so much success. They lose a game or two, and then they come back and they go in 7, 8, 9, 10 game winning streaks. This is a crisis of confidence for them. The way that this Tottenham side took them apart was brilliant. Some of the goals they scored, I have to say, were just fantastic.
Yeah, let's get to Spurs, shall we, Shaka? They were magnificent today.
They absolutely were. And as I mentioned, I thought City started the better. And Spurs, despite their injury issues, particularly defensively, seemed to cope well enough. And I know Haaland had a couple of chances that he should have done better with. But once they got that first goal, and credit to Spurs, even though you are pinned back of sorts, never stop chasing lost causes. Kulusevski chasing on Guardiola on the left-hand side to start things off. Kulusevski, who has been absolutely brilliant over the course of this season. I thought, again, showing his quality. Craig mentioned it. Maddison coming in, probably having his best game in a Spurs shirt. Heung-min Son, who, while Mother Nature, to Craig's point, catches up with us all, Son just seems to just stay one step ahead. And even though he's had his injury issues, and Postecoglou took him off because he has to kind of manage Son's minutes, just continues to be such an inspirational player and captain for Spurs. As a keeper, I have to mention it. Vicario, who's come in for his criticisms, I thought had a brilliant game again today. Shot stopping was simply on point. Everything about Spurs, especially when you consider their issues coming into this game, not just in terms of personnel, but you lose to Ipswich, and you had 2 weeks to sit and think about that, and to sit about thinking going to the Etihad on the back of that. I thought the response in every single department was absolutely was brilliant.
Where did it come from? Because we don't know what we're going to get from Spurs at the moment.
Well, away from home, apart from today. Spurs have themselves a very good manager. Now, I can't fathom the Crystal Palace away, the Brighton game away, the Ipswich at
Newcastle.
home. Yeah, I just, it is a head scratcher. But, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. They have themselves a good manager. They just have to figure it out, right? They're playing the best football they've played for years. They've just beaten Man City twice, right? They just have to figure out these mistakes against the smaller teams, and maybe it's being blasé that the game is so easy against Ipswich at home at times, and the possession is, and they didn't have the bulky possession today, and they showed that there is another side to the game. But they have themselves a good manager, right? I'm steadfast on that. I mean, how successful he'll be or not, I don't know. But he knows what he's doing. But today, it wasn't just Maddison, it wasn't just all those players. Ben Davies and Dragusin. I mean, Ben Davies, you talk about squad players. He was their starting left back a few years ago. He's not now. He knows he's not a starter. He's a Welsh international who's got a lot of it. But you talk about needing a squad. And you get this guy that comes in, right, and he's playing in a kind of unnatural position, although he's played there before many times. Away from home against Erling Haaland with a new partner, because the other two are out. I thought he was the epitome of this Tottenham performance. And it just all snowballed from there. The confidence that came out. They looked like they believed they were going to rip open this City defence every time they got on the ball, and they almost did. So that was absolutely brilliant. They just have to figure out the consistency, the away form against the smaller teams, and then the head-scratching games where you think, right, they're going to beat them 5-0 today and they lose. If they can figure that out, they'll be in the top 4 this year. There's no doubt.
If you look at Spurs' goals today and just break them down for what they were, you know, I spoke about Kulusevski chasing only lost cause for the first goal, brilliant football for the second, which Craig mentioned, and then the second half starts. Spurs win the ball back, they break, and as I'd mentioned, just when you're looking for City shirts to be the ones closing that gap because they're behind, they're under pressure, it's Pedro Porro and one other who is quickest in support. That's to make it 3-0. You're supposed to be defending a 2-goal lead. But it was Spurs on the night who just quite clearly wanted it more, and it showed. And then the fourth goal. Again, okay, 2 substitutes. Brendan Johnson falling in at the far post. Okay, and Timo Werner, you make the point that they've got fresh legs. But it just seemed to be Spurs who had all the running on the day. And if you're defending champions and you sit back against a game at home where you're looking for a response and the opponent are the ones who do more running, then that's where Pep Guardiola has to ask a lot more questions of his team.
Frank, what can you say about Spurs today?
That they showed to the world that they can be consistent, and Ange Postecoglou can use that and use that game to put the big pressure on that team. I always say that life at Tottenham was too easy for the players. We didn't feel the pressure from anybody, the board, the fans, the medias, even the coach. But today, Ange Postecoglou has to use that game as how to find a way again to prove to the world that they can keep on doing that. So the consistency was there, the quality was there, the unity was there. So everything was there, even with players injured. And Craig and Xhaka have the right to mention Draguzin, Davis and Vicario, because they've been absolutely fantastic today on top of the others. But what they showed and how they proved to the world again that they could be playing for 90 minutes at that highest level is for an insurance that Ange Postecoglou has to put a pressure he has to put on the players to keep on doing like that.
Just a quick word on City. We talked about a mini crisis. If Liverpool win tomorrow, and that's expected, it's not a given, but it is Southampton, bottom of the league, they could put City away next week, or whenever it is, next weekend at Anfield. Be 11 points.
Yeah.
Do we think City can close 11 points the way they're playing? No. And the way Liverpool are playing?
Well, as Xhaka, what happened to him, you know, when they had 14 points ahead, you know, with Newcastle.
All right. Nobody's talking about that, Frank. Nobody's talking about
that. Because previously we've seen how strong they are in the second half. Do you not believe that they could do that with this squad right now, with the way that they're looking, if they were to fall?
Well, there's no. Look, it's all ifs and buts and maybes. Liverpool might drop some points. Who knows? Who the hell thought Tottenham were going to go there today and win 4-0 with the squad they had, the players they had out, and their away form? That's how bonkers it is sometimes. So you just don't know. But if it goes to plan, and then they beat City at Anfield, it's 11 points. That's the way they're playing. This is not the City side of a couple of years ago when they were steamrolling teams. It's just not. I mean, they've only scored 4 goals in the last 5 games. It's not like they're getting beat by the odd goal in 7. You know what I mean? Like 4-3 and 5-4. They're not creating as many chances. They were the ones today that looked a little, not clueless is a strong word for Man City, but lacking guile in the final third as the game went on. And I think that's why the crowd were flat. So, you know, I think if I'm Liverpool, you don't want to get ahead of yourself. You do not want to get ahead of yourself, but it's hard sometimes. You think, we beat them tomorrow, Southampton, and we nail City next week, then they're kind of on the back burner.
Well, I'm glad you did bring City back up because we need to just mention the Rodri situation. Obviously, we saw him bringing his Ballon d'Or out before the game. There's no Rodri. There was no Kovacic today either, and he could be out for a few weeks. What are they going to do here? Because it can't be the whole season. It's just, oh, there's no Rodri. This is what happened.
Well, yeah, Kovacic will be back. And by the way, Kovacic has generally done a very good job. He's a good player. I mean, he's played for some of the biggest clubs on the planet. But yeah, I mean, you take Rodri out of any team, and it's a problem. But listen, we're not on the sympathy train here. This is Manchester City we're talking about. This is the best coach on the planet. It's his job now. You know, when things are going great, it's not easy, but it's easier. And when things are going badly, and they are for Man City at the moment, that's the time when you know who's with you and who's not. On the training ground, roll the sleeves up, working hard. Is the manager selecting the right players? Is he going to put, you know, centre-halves in midfield as he has before to try and shore it up? He has to figure that out. There's going to be nobody in England is going to have any sympathy for Man City when it comes to injuries. Absolutely nobody. They've had success, they have a good squad, and like every other side, they have to get on with it. I feel they'll figure it out, but if Liverpool win tomorrow and beat them next week, that is going to be a hell of a mountain to climb if they are going to win the title this year.
Frank, what are you feeling about Man City's midfield struggles?
Well, there is a mix of, for me, some players who are there but still inexperienced, and yes, Rodri absence is a real issue. That's a real issue. We are talking about the best player on the planet in that position, and Kovacic being not there, it's also adding issues to Guardiola. He has to find somebody. Maybe he has to buy somebody if needed, if they can, in the winter window. But otherwise, I don't see a player, even if I highly rank Lewis, for example, I don't see a player having not even half of the quality of a Rodri in that team, in that squad. So it's a problem. Maybe Stones can be in the middle. Maybe they can find somebody else. But you can see that there are something not good going on. Walker is not the Walker of before. I can see Guardiola is a good player, but offensively. But you have to secure something defensively. And again, we go back to the basics of what Guardiola was planning on. Being so good offensively that when they lose the ball, they get it back very high, which is not the case anymore. And that's an issue.
Felix, our director, has something that he'd like us to comment on, apparently, before we move on to talk about Arsenal against Nottingham Forest. He's made something for us. What do we think?
Is that where Pep is going wrong? He's dressing like Frank.
Yeah, I mean...
Well.
To be fair, you know, if you're a bald man with a beard, there's half a chance you're going to look like those two.
Listen, in the past, maybe I could presume that we could win 2 minutes left, but in the situation that there, Anthony Taylor's say, go to the shower, I never thought about that. It's true that we are not fluid. So we were a team like always play with this composure that now we don't have. What I have to do, keep walking, but I'm the boss, I'm the manager, and I'm not good enough. It's as simple as that. I have to find a way to talk to them, to the training to them, to the way you have to play, the way you have to press, the way you have to build up. And I'm not good enough. I'm not doing well. That is the truth.
Slightly different rhetoric than we've heard from Pep Guardiola over recent weeks. He's saying he is not good enough as Manchester City sit 5th in the table now. They are 9 points off Liverpool at the top, who do have a game in hand. Meanwhile, Manchester United remain in the bottom half of the table. Let's welcome in Luis Garcia, still with us. Frank LeBeuf joins us as well. We'll be hearing from the boys in a moment. But this was such a forgettable match, apart from the ending, which was extraordinary.
They've just gone at the moment. They forgot how to win football games. They forgot how to defend. They've forgotten how to really boss and dominate and stifle opponents and basically have so much of the ball and fizz it about so quickly that the opponent has just become so fed up. And I get it, their defending has been extremely poor recently. They can barely keep a clean sheet. I think Nottingham Forest recently the only one, and it shouldn't have been, only because Ortega made saves and Chris Wood missed chances. It's not just that. It was the fact that when they get this goal from the deflected cross, the match is still even.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not... It wasn't like they were absolutely playing United off the park. I actually liked Man United's shape. I thought their shape was very good. I thought they passed it pretty well for this kind of derby, because if you look back in recent history, they're lucky if they have 30% possession in this game. They're lucky if they see the ball. In this one, they felt really comfortable in the ball, Man United. They just didn't have much guile and, physicality and pace and invention in the final third until near the end of the game. So it was a pretty even game, which you've very rarely said over the past few years. Yes, United have won some of these games on the counter-attack, but they've been played off the park. They were not played off the park. And this is a team that a new manager's come in and he's trying to figure out where all these players can play and how he's going to get the best out of it. Gone toe-to-toe with a team. At the start of the season, there were a lot of people's favourites to win the league. There were a lot of people's favourites to win the Champions League. But they were so inept in the final third, and they were so poor defensively again. It really is shocking. You don't even have to give this team a punch in the nose. You've only got to slap them in the back of the head and they buckle.
Yeah.
And I'll give United a lot of credit for that. But Manchester City, it's hard to fathom out how a side that was so feared across Europe, not just in England, that every time you went to play them, you were going to get an absolute battering. To have said this in the last week or two, Dan, there's not a team that are in the top division anywhere around Europe, be it the Champions League or England, that doesn't feel that they can go and beat this team.
Frank, it was a game that just lacked in any sort of quality.
Exactly. I think it's one of the worst derby Manchester City against Manchester United that I ever watched in my life. And I've seen nothing until the end, but mostly because of defensive mistakes from City. But that was so poor. And again, I'm with Craig in a way that I think United did better than City. I think when they had the ball, they tried to do something. Defensively, they were pretty decent, I have to say. And because of Hamad Diallo, they had possibilities to score, and they did. Good for them. But otherwise, from City, I don't get it. I don't understand. That was the best team in the world last year, like 6 months ago. And from there, they are a mid-table team, and I'm being nice saying that. And I agree with Guardiola. They have nothing. Right now, yes, he's not good enough. It doesn't mean he's not good. But yes, he's not good enough right now because he has to sort all the problems out. But the players, I mean, yes, Matheus Nunes didn't play in this position. Okay. But on the second goal, yeah, I'm not even talking the first goal, but the second goal, Guardiola is not covering, but also Matheus Nunes, even if it's not his position, let Amad Diallo going. He doesn't go, he doesn't follow, he doesn't know what to do, he doesn't know if he has to play offside or not. And Guardiola has to kick the ball out. I don't know what he tries to do. He tries to do a major against when he has to save his goal. I mean, that was insane what I saw from Guardiola today. But overall, we didn't see De Bruyne. No. We barely see Foden. Walker, oh my God, that's only the shadow of himself. And so many others, we don't see them anymore. We don't recognize them. That's frightening. Really, that's scary.
That really is, isn't it, Luis? You take a look at that. Haaland hardly touched the ball. Kevin De Bruyne was taking free kicks. They were going 30 yards high and wide. Doku is so frustrating. Phil Foden, who was the player of the year last year.
Bernardo Silva. Bernardo Silva, your guy, you used to see him on the ball all the time.
And it's everyone. Everyone is a 2 out of 10 at the moment.
Yes, I think that the feeling of this team is that they just gone. They don't know how to react to this situation. The ideology of how to play, how to make this tiki-taka all the time all together. In the moment that you lose the ball, react straight away, they recover the ball. We don't see that anymore from Manchester City. It was just to be a team that you know that when you play against them, you're never going to touch the ball. You need to, and I think the Man United knew it, that they have to be organized and then make those quick transitions, trying to make a counter-attack, and maybe like this you can create or score a goal, and that's what they did. They knew the plan, but this Manchester City is not anymore that team. The team that they are looking, those triangulars that the Guardiola used to say to try to Bernardo Silva, Foden, De Bruyne, start passing to each other in very short distances, lose the ball, react and recover the ball again because you are close there. There is no anymore that. They just lose, they look sloppy, they look tired. You don't see those transition people tracking back. It's too open when before they used to be very narrow altogether. There is a Manchester City that is not recognizable for quite a long time. And right now, I'm sure that Pep Guardiola is trying to find the way of getting back there. There's been a lot of talk if Rodri was into the field, this could be a big difference, but I don't think the one player can make that much difference up front because they are not creating, and at the back because they are so vulnerable. So, yeah, a lot of work to be done, and let's see if they can redirect the situation. Still a lot of things to do.
That's the interesting point, isn't it? You could say, oh, look at the injuries, and yes, they are missing players at the back. But up top, your big boys are all there. You know, your Silvers, your Haalands, your Fodens, your De Bruynes. And the thing is, if I'm a Manchester City fan, I see no light at the end of the tunnel. Because it's not like, well, this player's going to come back. No, but this one's going to save me.
No, I get it. And the front line has been lacking in the quality and pace and invention and finishing that we're used to. But I dare say it, and I'm not Pep Guardiola, but he's got some big problems. I would suggest starting at the back. I always say this, is that you've got to start by keeping clean sheets, which they can't. But I would suggest trying to work in your back four to work as a unit. That's a starting point. We talk about Barcelona and these other teams. You know, Liverpool have defended well. You know, Arsenal's back four when everybody's fit. They work as a unit up and down. This is all over the place, and I get it. Matheus Nunes was playing on that sort of left side. Sometimes it was a back three when they had the ball because he pushed on. Sometimes he was back in there. But when you've just lost a goal and somebody's made a terrible mistake, you have Nunes, Guardiola, Diaz, and Walker. And when Lisandro Martinez is playing that ball from almost 50 yards away, there is absolutely, and I mean absolutely, no need for Josep Guardiola to push in 5 to 10 yards on a Man United player here. There's no need for it because that ball then can be... He's got a very inexperienced player in that position on his left-hand side, so then it becomes an easy... Frank's right, he doesn't track the run, but it's not natural for him. So he doesn't track the run, and Guardiola stepped out, and it's so disjointed that it takes a very, very good ball, and it was, and a very good run, but it takes one long ball and one run, and they're in. And I suggest this sums up Man City. The defence is disjointed, the whole team is disjointed, and if anything, United were the team that impressed me today with their shape. City, they're all moving around as they usually do and blah, 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 but it leaves them open. United's shape really impressed me today. Yes, they didn't create a lot until the end of the game, but they passed it around quite nicely. They were composed on the ball. They switched play at times when they had to. They were the side today, for me, in a poor game, I'll give you that, but that's not on United. United they're having troubled times, right? Trying to rebuild and get into the top half of the league. City are the side that were expected to sort of dominate. So, from that perspective, I liked what Man United did, and they probably played as well as they could. But as for Man City, I mean, it's no surprise. You picked them for a win. I thought you picked United for a win. I thought City were going to win. A lot of the guys thought it was going to be a draw. But none of it would have been a surprise, would it? If City had turned up and blown United away, would have went, all right. But United winning and City capitulating at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that? Who was the team that played? Was it Eintracht Frankfurt? Whoever they played? Feyenoord. We've seen this movie before, and worryingly, I think we'll see it again. I don't think it's going away anytime soon.
That's the big concern, isn't it, Frank? If I'm a City fan, that's 1 win in 11, and we just keep seeing the same movie played out over and over again. Defensive frailties, not good enough in the final third, getting overrun in midfield. You kind of think, why is there any sort of glimmer of optimism for this side moving forward? Why are we not just going to see the same thing happen between now and the end of the season?
because they've been prepared like that and kind of robotized like that, they've been initialized like that. You say we don't see the light out at the end of the tunnel because they cannot play otherwise. Guardiola had a successful way of playing. He showed it with Barcelona, a little bit with Bayern Munich, a lot with Manchester City. There is one way of playing. And he had all those players who did very well. But now, physically, maybe mentally, they're not prepared anymore to make the efforts to get the ball back as soon as possible. It's why they concede goals, because defensively, they never worked for that. They worked offensively. They worked on keeping the ball, tiki-taka, and finding the right space. At the time, you had De Bruyne, you had Rodri, you had so many others, Gundogan, they were at the top of the top, Foden as well, best player last year. They were giving assists like gifts to Alan. You don't see that anymore. Therefore, they're not good, they start to doubt, they don't defend, they not counter-press, and they get the counter-attack, and they get punished at the end of the day. That's how it works. Because they cannot react because they don't know how to play otherwise. It's why I want to see Guardiola trying to find something else. Maybe, as Craig's mentioned, maybe start to not concede goals anymore. But does Guardiola have the individuals for that? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Is it an acceptance of where they are and an acceptance of how worried they are that they allowed Mazraoui and Maguire and Martinez to sort of pass the ball around back to Onana and into a centre-half, and Harry Maguire was able to put his foot on it and get his head up, and they were able to hit these balls, and they got it out to the wing-backs. They would never have been able to do... Well, if they'd tried to do that previously, this City side would have squeezed the game so much. The whole back four's kind of on the halfway line, the midfield's pushed up, the front line are pushed up, and they're just forcing you. They're basically forcing you to shell it up the field or try and play it into your front man, and they win it back, and then they're coming at you again. I don't remember any of that. I remember this being so comfortable for most of the game for that back three to get the ball off Onana and get in possession. And that allowed Man United to get some confidence in the game. But I think it tells you where City are, that either the instruction has come not to press like that, or they just don't feel within the players on the field that they have the legs to do it. Because normally when you go at the Etihad, you don't get that amount of time on the ball as defensive players to get your head up and pick a pass. Now you can.
What next for Pep? How does he deal with this, Luis?
Well, I guess it's a lot to work out of the field. I think these players need to release a little bit of the tension, of the pressure that they are feeling at the moment. And of course, when you go to train, because you cannot stop right now. If not, I'm sure that this break that they are going to have during the... Well, there's no break here in Premier League. But if you can have a break right now, it would be the perfect moment to try to, again, think about different things, trying to focus on other stuff, try to clear your head, because of what I saw in the body language of the players of City today, not understanding what was happening. In the first 45, they were dominated, but they were not harming Manchester United. So what is coming now is to try to, he mentioned, I need to talk different to them, I need to make them understand what we want to do, and maybe change a little bit of the style. Not the style of play, not that philosophy that he's got, but moving players' position, I think it could be fantastic to try to, again, clear their ideas and try to restart again this season.
Talk to me about Kyle Walker, Frank.
I don't understand. I mean, it's like he lost everything. I mean, on the action that maybe you want me to mention with Højlund, a foreign player would have been hammered by the press because he did that. I never seen in my life, while I was playing for Chelsea, an English player going on the floor like that. It never happened. It never happened. It was inexistent at the time. And I'm very disappointed because I highly rank Kyle Walker. I think he's been, at the time, maybe like 2 years ago, the best fullback in the world. Because of his pace, because of his cleverness and everything, he was there. But again, as I said before, he's only the shadow of himself right now. We don't see the Kyle Walker we used to see. He's confused. He makes silly mistakes. He doesn't run as fast as he used to do. And now, on top of it, he's becoming an actor.
Going on Instagram, saying, what did he say again? Yes, love it, kids, love it, lads. This is what Ruben and Amorim had to say after the game about the decision to not include them in the squad.
It's important to say why. It was not a disciplinary thing. Next week, next game, new life. They are fighting for the places, but for me it's important the performance in training, the performance in game, the way you dress, the way you eat, the way you engage with the teammates, the way you push your teammates. Everything is important in our context in the beginning of Sunday when we want to change a lot of things, when people in our club are losing their jobs. We have to put the standards really high. And for that, they have to fight for the place in the team. And today, the team proved that we can leave anyone outside the squad. You can manage to win if we play together.
All worked out, obviously, in the end. What sort of statement is he putting out?
Well, look, I wouldn't bat an eyelid if Marcus Rashford wasn't in the starting 11. Wouldn't bat an eyelid at all. The fact he's not in the squad, when he could change a game off the bench, and Garnacho, raises the that it's something out with form. He touched on it there, lifestyle, all the stuff that goes with it. So clearly there is an attitude, at the very bare minimum, an attitude issue. And for Marcus Rashford to be posting on his Instagram while his buddies, his colleagues are out there grafting to get a victory, and he's posting, yes lads, or whatever it was, when he's not there because, allegedly, his attitude, amongst other things, is not good enough, is frankly a joke. He shouldn't be anywhere near social media. He should be keeping his head down, embarrassed that he's not at the Etihad to help. The worst, and I said this to you earlier, one of the worst things that could have happened for Man United in the last 2 or 3 years was Marcus Rashford come out of the doldrums and had this magnificent season a couple of years ago, scored all these goals, and they really were stuck, Man United, in terms of they had to give him a big new contract, right? Because they were in a corner. And in hindsight, right, and we all looked at it at the time, well, they have to give him it, but what are they going to get? And the answer is, he's sitting back on easy street. And I'll say it, and I'm not really, Garnacho's another story, he's a younger player, but Rashford's an England international. He's a star, he's a headliner, he's a match winner. He's capable of getting 25, 30 goals a season, right? The best, and I've played against some of the best players that I've ever played at Man United. The Keanes, the Giggs, the Cantonas, the Scholes, you name it. You know, when they got new contracts, they pushed to be even better. They wanted to win the league again. They wanted to win it 2 times, 3 times, the Champions League. Didn't matter if they were on 50 grand a week, 100 grand, or 500 grand a week. It made no difference to them. But Marcus Rashford, and he's not the only one, he got this big new bumper contract, and he could not give a toss. And to sit there and post on social media when you must be embarrassed that you've been shoveled out of the squad by this new manager who doesn't like what he's seen. I would keep my head down and I'd be first at training tomorrow morning or Monday morning or Tuesday morning, whenever it is, and I'd be saying, right, how can I put this right? An utter embarrassment to himself and his football club.
Frank?
I'm with you, Craig, but you think like an old lad, and I really think like you. And there is 2 ways to see the interpretation of him saying something. Some people will say, wow, that's very nice. The guy is not even on the bench. He's at home and he's encouraging his teammates and congratulating his teammates. That's very nice. The guy is part of the group. He's not resentful. He goes for it and he's patient. Some people will think that, really. Where I go with you, where you should, put your head down, don't say anything, don't go onto social network and just go back to work because it's time for you to react. That's what it is. But I really think that for Rashford, Amorim is a little bit lying. I think it's not a discipline sanction, but it's because of the way he doesn't train, properly, it's because, well, we were told that now fashion is important. He said the way to dress is important as well. I didn't know that, but whatever. We can talk about the haircut as well, maybe. But really, I really think that Rashford is not doing the job in the training session. Therefore, it's a kind of a discipline sanction for me. He sanctioned him because he doesn't train, he doesn't properly train.
Luis?
Yeah, I think this is a message that is sending to everyone. Once you want to pick something, then and start making a new start of this team, because something is missing, that's definitely, and I think that Ruben just mentioned that we need to start changing a lot of things, and if we want to become the team that we want, we need to be the best at everything, and that's why he mentioned the dressing, the food, how you connect with your teammates, how you push your teammates. I think it's definitely a message and something that either like from Rashford, maybe something that happened into the dressing room. We don't have the all information. Of course, the message that you send to the press is that we are trying to build something, but definitely it's a message to all the players. Listen, if you don't work hard, if you don't keep the rules that we got into the dressing room, and you don't look after yourself, I have zero problems, because I've done it with probably one of the best players in the team. I put it on the side, and look, today we won against Manchester City. The best that it can happen is that win against Manchester City, put in Rashford. From now on, every single one of the players that are involved, they know that from Monday, they need to start fresh, and they need to start working hard, because if not, there is no space for them on the team.